it is mild symptoms. We have very few people who are critically ill. So the focus should be on who is critically ill, who needs a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Because those are the people who will demand a lot from the healthcare system.
So actually, let's break it down. Of the 613 who are in isolation, how many are in critical care?
So unfortunately, the ministry hasn't been giving that data. We just know from what they have cumulatively done. Actually, it's now 80% of Kenyans. This is as at 19th May. 80% of the people who had been confirmed were asymptomatic, no symptoms at all. And that is when we had 963 confirmed cases. So 769 had no symptoms. Then 191, which is 19.9%, were symptomatic. And the most common presenting symptom is fever and cough. Not even difficulty in breathing. Difficulty in breathing is a third, 34.6% of the people who have symptoms. So if you break it down, the numbers are really low. So I think now we probably do not have anyone who is critically ill or in ICU. I think it's just one. According to world meters, it's one.
Ventilators are not overwhelmed.
No.
We basically don't have people who have been
Nope.
intubated.
Nope.
Good thing.
It's a good thing.
It's a very good thing. It should tell the world about something. You know, they'll now keep arguing, oh, you guys are not testing enough. Test what? Look, how many people are asking to be intubated? How many people require to be intubated? Maybe Africa should change the narrative. Instead of going the Western way of, testing. So like, let's watch out for how many people are requiring critical care and hospitalization.
Yeah, I think a unique opportunity is being presented to change the way the story is told on the continent again, because we're not dealing with the same circumstances that the rest of the world is dealing with, and that's clear. It's evident that we're dealing with the same disease, but then different circumstances and then different outcomes, different results.
Yeah.
So it would be, I think, a good time to be able to tell our story in a different way.
Yeah.
And the number of counties that have confirmed cases has also increased. They're quite a number, right? Makueni, Kisii, Kirinyaga, Bomet, Isiolo, Meru, Garissa, Homa Bay, Kakamega, Bungoma, Siaya, Machakos, Busia, Uasin Gishu, Nakuru, Taita Taveta, Kitui, Migori, Wajir, Kiambu, Kajiado, and then Kwale, Kilifi, Mandera, Mombasa, Nairobi. So it's like, everywhere in the country. All regions.
I wouldn't be so worried right now with many cases being in different counties. Even remember when China was still grappling with it, then it was Europe, America. It was just a matter of saying it is a matter of when. Not if. So that other counties are reporting is not really a big concern. The concern is, and as you rightly said, is what is the state of the people who have been confirmed? Are they critically ill or are they asymptomatic? Because then that's the ones that you need to really focus on is the ones that are critically ill. Those that are asymptomatic or with mild symptoms, what you need to do is just contain so that they do not spread the virus any further. So for me, I think it is very straightforward what should be done, what should happen to make sure that we contain this within.
Contain it.
Yeah.
But when you see it spreading outside to the other counties, remember we've been talking about where are the elderly and the vulnerable. They are in the shags counties, right? So when you start going there, maybe it's also something to start thinking about.
Well, for sure, if you see the spread now reaching other counties where, the older are at the moment, then you want to have it's probably an eyebrow-raising moment to say, okay, we need to be careful about this and maybe now look at more stringent containment measures.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately what would happen is that then the virus is being carried to them where they are, which is what we're trying to avoid right now.
Wow. Okay. And there's 50 who've died. I mean, the fact of the matter is that there are 50 people who've died. And not all of them are, just the elderly. Yeah. So there's still some concern somewhere. When you think about, like, now the gentleman Wetangula's brother who was buried yesterday, not an old man, right? And he's been very active. He was actually active just a couple of weeks ago, distributing relief food, working with the MP, Timonyonyi, Westlands MP, distributing food, meeting people. So he was active. He's an active man. And then that thing hits and it takes him down. So, you still can't tell. So
I think the data that we don't have, or the information we don't have from the Ministry of Health, is whether this 50 had any other pre-existing conditions.
Yeah.
At the beginning, when I think by the time we were getting to the 15th death, we could account and tell so-and-so had diabetes, had hypertension, had cancer.
Yeah.
But I think as the numbers went up, we sort of slowed down.
Forgot the story.
Forgot, not really, or not, we are not following up the circumstances under which these other 35 or so people have died. It's sort of like we have, what I have been afraid of, normalizing the deaths from COVID-19. Just because somebody had COVID and maybe hypertension or diabetes and they died, doesn't mean they should have died. Or maybe something could have been done. So that's why a mortality audit on all the deaths that have occurred should be done, so that we are able to know, could we have avoided this death, so that we avoid other deaths. Because just because somebody has COVID doesn't mean they should die of it or from its complications. So I think we have dropped the ball there in reporting about these deaths and the circumstances under which
I hope
people
the ball
died.
has just been dropped in reporting and not actually in following up and taking the records of this. Let's hope that the ministry is actually tabulating all that.
I hope so.
And doing like a profile of, so these are the people who've died and this was their status. They had.
I've not seen any document to that effect.
Or even
from the
showing
ministry.
from the moment that they tested positive. I mean, how quickly did they deteriorate? What happened? The 366 that recovered, were they all asymptomatic, or and if they were all asymptomatic, what did they also have pre-existing conditions? You may find some of the 366 that have recovered also are people who had pre-existing conditions.
Possible.
I know at least 2 had asthma, and they recovered.
Wow.
But then again, some of the information coming from the West is that having asthma, and Kenya should not take this for the absolute truth, is an added benefit, because chances are people with asthma are on a steroid. Whether it's the inhaler or medicines, they probably are using a steroid. And some of the data, some of the information that I was seeing was that using a steroid could have an added advantage in managing COVID or reducing the symptoms or easing the symptoms of COVID. So WHO is even trying to see if they can introduce steroids for the management and treatment of COVID, because one, steroids then would be cheaper and would be a cheaper alternative, especially in developing countries, because it's readily available and it's a cheap option. So they're saying maybe having asthma is a good thing.
Okay, let's take a break, take a look at weather, and then we come back with this conversation, looking at the COVID-19 in numbers globally. Good morning, 20 minutes after 6.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
This morning, we're looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. 17 degrees is going to take us to a high of 22 and lows of 14, with a very high chance of rain in the afternoon. Nyeri this morning is cloudy at 16 degrees, and it's going to be a wet day in Nyeri. 22 degrees the high and lows of 14. In Nakuru at 14 degrees, partly cloudy conditions just this morning, but showers come in the afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 13. Eldoret is clear skies this morning at 13 degrees. We'll see cloudy conditions later that will progress to rain with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Kisumu at 20 degrees is clear skies all through, highs of 28 and lows of 15 with rain showers in the afternoon. Let's take a look into Mombasa, where it's mostly cloudy this morning and showers are likely to start really soon with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Malindi at 26 degrees is mostly cloudy as well. It's going to be a wet day in the coast as well, highs of 28 and lows of 25. Taking a look into Kampala, it's partly cloudy this morning. Thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees is partly cloudy. We'll see showers later on with highs of 29 and lows of 22. Taking a look into Lagos, where the thunderstorms are already coming down, it's likely to be a wet day, and going into Friday and the weekend, likely to be thunderstorms throughout. Highs of 32 and lows of 26. In Johannesburg this morning at 8 degrees, it's clear skies. Sunny conditions to be experienced through the day with highs of 19 and lows of 7. In London this morning, it is partly cloudy at 16 degrees. Temperatures are really warming up in this part of the world. Highs of 26 and lows of 16 with chance of showers in the afternoon. We'll see how that cools down later on. When the sun does come up in New York City, it'll be 11 degrees and clear skies all through with highs of 18 and lows of 9. And we'll wrap things up in lovely Paris at 17 degrees, where clear skies will go into partly cloudy conditions later with highs of 29 and lows of 17.
Minutes after 6. This is a situation on Kenya's biggest conversation. Well, let's start off with today's proverb. It's an African proverb. So maize, the maize plant, it doesn't have deep roots, right? Mm-hmm. So the Africans, in their wisdom, came up with this proverb. Maize bears fruit once and dies because it's not rooted into the ground.
Okay. That has sunk deep.
Has it?
Deep.
Maize bears fruit once and dies because it's not rooted into the ground. Without a foundation, you cannot succeed and remain successful. Don't build your house on sand. You'll never get to the top. So this is it. Basically, root is important.
Foundation is important.
Foundation is important for you bearing fruit once and twice and 3 times. Let's look at COVID-19 in numbers globally. Today, being the 21st of May, 2020.
21.
What are the numbers? Have we reached 5 million?
We have, and crossed that mark significantly. So, crossed by 85,000. So, 5,085,666 is the cases we're looking at globally. And important to note that the recovered cases are 2,021,673 with 329,736 deaths. So we're looking at about almost half, almost 50% of the total cases have ended up in recoveries, which is a good thing. Applause, applause. All right. And if we look at it by country, it's still that we see certain countries seem to be, I don't know how to say it, getting in touch with COVID now. Because we still look at countries like Mexico, where their caseload is increasing by the day. The last 6 hours have seen 2,600 cases in a very short period of time. 2,248 cases and 424 deaths in the last 6 hours. And it's like these numbers continue to rise. Russia, also a country that is rising with numbers, 308,705. Just weeks ago, I remember looking at these numbers and remembering very clearly that Russia was well below 100,000 just 3 weeks ago, and now 308,705. However, with 2,972 deaths. Brazil also is way up there, having passed Spain in a very short period of time, 293,000 cases, 293,357, with 18,894 deaths. The US is still topping the charts, we know that, with 1.591991 million and 94,994 deaths. So if you want to look at the numbers and how they're changing in Africa, South Africa is now very close to 20,000 cases with 18,003 cases with 339 deaths. Egypt at 14,229 with 680 deaths. And we have the other...
How many deaths in Egypt?
680.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so, less
And
cases
South
than in
Africa
South
deaths?
Africa, 339 deaths in South Africa. So looking at almost double the number of deaths in Egypt, with about 5,000 less cases in Egypt. So clearly more deaths happening in Egypt and less cases.
And that has been a spike, because for a long time, Egypt had just had few cases and few deaths. And now, those numbers are just adding up.
Yeah, and if we look at North
Pretty
Africa,
fast.
North with 14,000 cases, they have double the number of other North African states. Because if we're looking at Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, they're still down around that 6,000, 7,000 for the three of them, right? Egypt with this high number of cases, and then comparatively, that number of deaths is then pretty high if we're doing a percentage outlook. Nigeria with 6,677 cases and 200 deaths. Ghana, 6,269 cases with 31 deaths. Continue to look across board. Guinea, around that same number. Sudan, Senegal, around the 2,000, 2,500, inching close to 3,000. Cote d'Ivoire, 2,200 cases. Djibouti at 1,828 cases. Countries like Gabon in the same numbers. And then we look at Kenya, that has crossed the 1,000 case mark with 1,029 cases. Tanzania, yes, still at 509 cases that we know still. We'll see if that changes tomorrow. Ethiopia still holding steady at 389 cases. Madagascar at 371 cases. So Rwanda at 314 cases, and Uganda still steady at 264 cases. So those are the numbers that we continue to see. The Southern African states still quite low, save South Africa. We have numbers quite low as 23, 16, 71 in Malawi. Zimbabwe at 48, Burundi still at 42, Botswana at 25. And that's what the outlook is. So I think we see pockets where cases have actually grown, pockets now where they've remained stable, and then pockets where they've remained very, very low. And we can see that with the highest numbers we have still under 20,000 per country, but rising. Yeah.
And I think I was just looking for some interesting stories from Egypt, because I think there's something that's happening in Egypt, in terms of, we need to explain that spike. Egypt was among the first countries in Africa to record COVID-19,
Yes.
and then for a long time stayed like that. Although now they've increased the number of tests. When they're announcing 700 new cases a day, that shows you that they're testing quite widely. But the number of deaths as well, 600. Hey, that's a high number.
It's very close to 10. It's close to 10%. It would be interesting to see how that goes over time. But yeah.
So easily, Egypt has the highest number of deaths for COVID-19 in Africa.
In Africa,
yes, they do.
I'm also trying to think about, do they have a high number of pre-existing conditions?
Yeah.
What is the age population pyramid? How does it look like? Do they have more elderly, more sickly? Because now that may give
There's
an
a story
explanation.
around this.
There has to be.
There has to be a story around this. 24 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a traffic break. And then this conversation continues. Shortly, we'll be taking a look at the newspaper headlines this morning. Good morning. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The live stream is up. www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. Join the conversation on Instagram, Spice FM KE. And you can call us in on 0719 012 600.
So most of the traffic that we see is the folks jogging on Thika Road this morning. Everybody seems to be into exercise mode, and the prediction is that there will be many gold medals in the near future if things continue this way. So not much in terms of human or not much in terms of vehicular traffic, but human traffic and people keeping exercised and healthy. Dr. Mercy would be so proud. Traffic along Kangunda Road looks really good. It's flowing smoothly. Mombasa Road is not causing much of a headache right now. Likely to see a little bit more of this around 7 or so. We'll let you know what that looks like in a short bit. Spice of MKE, let me know what you see and we can spread the word. But for now, you shouldn't have any problems getting out and about.
People are exercising along the major highways on the southern bypass. They need to wear reflector jackets. You can hardly see them. And you know the way some of our roads are poorly lit.
Yeah.
So for their own safety, they should consider wearing something reflective.
The doctor has spoken.
Yep.
People who are jogging, and there's a remarkably increased number of joggers in the morning, in the evening, all over the city, especially. So in these dark hours of the morning, it's you're saying for your own safety.
Yep. Do not assume that the driver will see you. Remember, people still talk on phone. Some are still texting and driving. Somebody may not see you.
Even if you're not texting and driving, basically
you can be collateral damage any day. So for your own safety, just wear something reflective because you'll be spotted from miles away.
I was looking at the number of joggers, as you come in the morning and you see now they're actually in groups, groups of people jogging or couples jogging, or even some individuals jogging. And there's an increasing number of people who are doing that. And I was asking myself, so is this one of the positive things that's going to come out of COVID?
I think so.
So people are now, thinking more of their health. Then I also told myself, but also remember, gyms have closed. So maybe all these guys
are normally in the gym at this time.
Normally in the gym at this time, but now they're out here.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Or alternatively, you just find yourself, you're in the house the whole day. You have to get something to do
from cabin
something
fever.
out. Yeah,
to get something.
To just stretch, and you find yourself jogging. So gyms may suffer.
Because people realize, actually, I can do this out here and not have to pay anybody.
You get used to waking up in the morning and just jogging and coming back home and it's safe. And always you've been thinking, I can get mugged. And now it hasn't happened for an entire month to you. And you're thinking, so why should I pay these guys?
I can do it out here.
I'll reduce the number of days. If I was doing 5 days a week, I can just be pay for gym once a week or twice a week to go and do weightlifting or something like that. It'll be interesting to see this.
Changing times.
But
Changing
guys,
times.
keep safe.
Safety is important.
Yeah.
Take a look at the headlines. Go.
This one I have to say. I know they say when a man is down, you don't beat them up some more. But this one we have to talk about.
Just beating. Who's this?
So this is about It's actually not on the headline. But yeah, on page 6, just addressing red alert as COVID-19 cases pass the 1,000 mark, the one that Eric owes us. So confirmed coronavirus cases reach 1,029, spread across 10 counties after the highest number of infections yesterday. Those were 66. It was a day 2 MPs buried their brother in a ceremony conducted by health ministry officials in protective gear, a ritual common with burial of suspected COVID-19 victims. Now, this is the brother to Senator Moses Wetangula and Westlands MP Tim Wanyonyi. The late Anthony Waswa was the younger brother of the two. So now it's yesterday so the story on the burial, which is what I'm focusing on, is on page 12 of the Standard. So yesterday, in the morning, when they were preparing to do the burial, is when we realized guys have come in hazmat suits. So what's happening? Only hazmat suits are have been associated with burials of COVID-19 victims. So now that's when we started asking questions. What did Anthony Waswa die of? So there had not been any confirmation, anything about
any public mention.
Yes, the cause of his death. So, or anything publicly. Even as at yesterday, this is Tim Wanyonyi. He says, my brother talked to me. Not here. On May 11, I talked to him in the morning and he said he had been admitted at Ngara Medical Center. When his condition worsened, I took him to Aga Khan Hospital for specialized treatment. On Friday, my sister informed me that my brother had died. Wanyonyi denied that Waswa died from COVID-19 related illness. This is as of yesterday. However, they opted not to carry out a post-mortem examination and buried him in line with the government's directive to bury the dead within 48 hours. Okay. So even as of yesterday, the family is saying no, our brother did not die of COVID-19, but the story confirms that Westlands MP Wanyonyi denies King died of COVID-19, but in the story they said he died of COVID-19.
How do they know?
They confirmed.
How?
We can ask Nathan Ochunge and the editors, but they confirmed. But you think about it, why would anyone be buried with all of these hazmat suits?
Because
they fumigated the place. They fumigated the chopper that landed to bring his body. And then yesterday, about 10 senators who were meant to accompany the body did not travel to Bungoma as their helicopter was denied clearance by government to take off from Wilson Airport. That's a whole story on its own. We shall address.
Where were they going anyway?
That one we shall talk about.
So let's come back to
this one.
Mr. Waswa. Waswa, according to the family, falls sick, goes to a medical facility in Ngara, is transferred to the Aga Khan, he passes away. The story is not telling us at what point Waswa was tested for COVID-19 and confirmed to have been COVID-19 positive. The family is also saying they have not conducted any post-mortem, right? So how do we know that he died of COVID-19? Just because we are seeing people in hazmat suits?
Well, I mean,
could be precautionary.
There is a general assumption. I mean, it could be precautionary, but I mean, the way in which it was done, look at the optics of it. I mean, you have 6 gentlemen in hazmat suits walking around here. The whole place was fumigated. Like Dr. Mercy said, the chopper was fumigated. I mean, yes, I understand that we're living in COVID times, but in this case, it just seemed a bit odd, right? And then if a report is coming from hospital that he died of COVID-related illness, then what exactly are we saying? He walks like a duck? Quacks like a duck? It's not a donkey.
I was thinking the other day, in these times, if you are a funeral parlor attendant, a funeral home attendant, wouldn't you rather wear hazmat suit at all times? If you're an ambulance operator and you're called for an emergency, and this person has been knocked down by a motorbike on Mombasa Road, okay? Not dead, still alive, breathing, but you're operating an ambulance, you definitely should be wearing PPEs because you don't know the status of this person.
But these are 10 medical staff. They are not your everyday morticians or undertakers. There are 10 medical staff.
What does that mean?
Who have, these are your
So
public health officials, public health officers who have been trained to do this, who have been specifically deployed to come and enter. So, I mean, really, we can't say we are not seeing what we are seeing.
Right.
Yes, and now the reason why I picked this story on 18th of March, which is 2 months exactly. Bungoma Senator Moses Wetangula urged the government to reveal the identities of patients confirmed to have the coronavirus. In the statement, he said, revealing the names of COVID-19 patients will help the Ministry of Health to trace the contact persons for quarantine, hence making it easier to contain the spread of the virus. And let me quote him, I encourage the government not to conceal the identities of our compatriots who have been found to be COVID-19 positive. So here we are. If your own brother has been confirmed to be COVID-19 positive, that's why I say if he has been confirmed to be positive,
That information should be shared.
that information should be shared. And particularly because prior to his admission, they were out with his younger brother, the MP, Westlands, distributing food and other items for constituents.
You're raising a very, very strong point here. If indeed Mr. Waswa, who also worked for the Parliamentary Service Commission, if he died of COVID-related illnesses, then there's no need to hide.
Yeah.
All right?
There is no need to hide.
We know he's your brother. He's also a public figure. He's involved very
Exactly.
much in the management of the Westlands constituency office. He's involved very much in his brother's operations in Westlands. And in fact, there he was with his brother dealing with the public. Just come and say, you know what,
Exactly.
guys? He's died. He had COVID. Bas.
These are the measures
Or
you need to take.
He's died. He didn't have any of the symptoms of COVID. He didn't have breathing complications. But upon testing, he was found to have had COVID. Okay, or he was tested COVID negative.
Just say
come
it.
out and say.
Just say it.
He actually, like you're saying, when anybody is being admitted to Aga Khan itself is the one that announced anybody who's getting admitted to Aga Khan gets COVID tests. So,
Yeah.
So, there you go.
So we need to know.
Just say
We need
just
to know. Just say it, because
Public
here
interest in
you've
this
already
case.
said 2 days prior to his admission, he was distributing foodstuffs and sanitizers to vulnerable families
Yeah.
in the constituency.
Yeah.
Those people have a right to know so that you can take the necessary measures. If the Ministry of Health needs to go in and do testing, fumigation, whatever it is, people have a right to know. So the same thing he had said, disclose the identities, it is right here on his doorstep. It's about time he needs to walk the talk and tell us if that is the case.
He'll tell you the government advised that it's not the right thing to do, so I'm following the government's advice.
No,
Politicians.
all at the time was political
And
speak. At the
so
time when it
that
was okay
said-
for everybody else, should also be okay for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what the government advises. So let's take a short break. It's at 12 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're taking a look at the newspaper headlines. That's one. We have a couple of others to go by. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. So, after all been said and done,
Condole with the family. Tunapenda
kutuma
kutuma
risala
risala za rambirambi, our condolences
kwa
to
jamaa, marafiki, wa mwenda zake,
Anthony Waswa.
Anthony Waswa. There's a family that's mourning.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That's
And it
at
doesn't
the
matter.
end of
It
the
doesn't matter how he died. The thing is, There's a family that's mourning.
Yeah. So
Okay.
tunasema pole.
Poleni. Magic 8 to hold key to Ruto's fate. So this story is unrelenting. Only 8 MPs stand between the deputy president and looming impeachment. Can they withstand growing pressure from the president and his men? So we are talking about loyalty to the deputy president in the National Assembly. If there was an impeachment motion that is brought against the DP, a resurgent President Uhuru Kenyatta is overseeing the purge of rebels allied to his deputy from Jubilee party ranks. The threat of impeachment hangs over William Ruto like the sword of Damocles. So those in the DP's camp, better known as Team Tanga Tanga, believe that once President Kenyatta has regained control of the party, he will seek to expel the source of his vexation. Sources hint that the grounds for removing the DP from office have already been drafted. We know what the Constitution says about impeaching a president or deputy president, a gross violation of the Constitution and the rest, right? The DP will reportedly be charged with undermining the war on corruption, engaging in early 2022 presidential campaigns, reorganizing the government's development agenda, fighting government policies and its officers, and resisting unity efforts, among others. Which of those meets the constitutional threshold? Okay. So this proposed ouster attempt ends up being different from previous threats to impeach that never got off the ground, will inevitably boil down to who has the numbers. Now let's look at the numbers in the National Assembly. Those who are allied directly and unequivocally to the Kieleweke side of Jubilee, 50. Those who are allied to Tanga Tanga, 124. Now remember, I have not said unequivocally to Tanga Tanga because there's pressure to pull them to the other side, and we know how that pressure is. Then we have ODM with 76 MPs, KANU has 10 MPs, ANC 14 MPs, Wiper 23, and other parties and independents 52. So Kieleweke and others 225, Tanga Tanga 127. How many do you need to impeach the deputy president? You need 1/3 of the total number of 349. So that's why now the story is given a hold in a page 5. This is the issue that is required, and the people that are required now to cross over from Tanga Tanga, so that you can make the number what we are looking at. Yeah,
It's
you
still a
need
game of
you
numbers
need
now.
233.
That's what's being looked at.
You're assuming that all these other parties, including the independents, are all on one side.
On one side.
This
They're going to make a
225.
decision in one way, right?
Yeah, going to make a decision in one way.
Mm.
So to get to 233 from 225, you need 13.
Yes.
Sasa kimeumana. No, not 13.
No.
Yes, I'm
No, no,
like
no.
233 to 235.
No. 225
Oh,
to
225 to 233 is 8.
8
yes,
members.
which
Yes.
is a magic number.
You need 8 members. 8. Yeah.
So you need to roll the magic 8 ball in this case
Mm.
and see what is going to happen.
see.
Assuming again that everybody
this
else
225
is on one side.
Is solid.
So looking at a short strip there by Mushiri, there is a voter from Kirinyaga who's asked Lusaka to oust their MP Charles Kibiru
Yeah.
because he's an independent candidate.
And
So
he
what was
attended
he
the
going
Jubilee.
to do in a Jubilee parliamentary group meeting?
Yeah.
So
And-
then that's how. Then the question would be, how many other independents are there?
Are there.
And is it legal, constitutional, right for them to have attended a parliamentary group meeting?
He was the only independent who was on the list of those who went to State House. And he was it's reported he was very instrumental in even, whipping people to attend the meeting.
Yeah.
But then you're independent.
You're independent.
And as an independent, then the Political Parties Act also says that this is a political party. The members of the party are the ones
Are
who
the
are
ones who will make the decision.
making a decision.
Yeah.
So if you're an independent, do you participate? Was he participating in the internal affairs of a political party? Or was he attending a meeting and saying, well, you know what, I align myself. The same way KANU aligns itself, or no, not KANU. ODM says it's in a cooperation with Jubilee.
But ODM did not attend the Jubilee Party Parliamentary Group meeting.
It was not a party parliamentary group meeting. Remember, KANU was there.
But KANU had a post-election agreement with Jubilee.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why they were there.
So it's not a party, it's a coalition.
So has
It's
this
a coalition
has this independent candidate
aligned himself to? He could say that. He could say, I have chosen to practically work with Jubilee.
Then he should go back and tell his voters that this
was actually his intention.
I don't think independent means that you cannot cooperate with.
There is no party that can't cooperate with another party.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
including an
across the board.
independent.
However, at this
person.
point, but I don't think in what the argument here is that it wasn't. Unless it's different from our knowledge or attention, such intentions were not declared. To say that I am actually seeking
Who does he need to tell?
cooperate.
He's independent. He's not telling his member. Who is he telling?
Well, even when he was an
Whoever
independent and the
voted for
government himself
him.
voted into that position, did he not have to clear it with somebody?
he did.
He's an independent candidate.
Yes, but it still had to be
He's
clear.
accountable to his
The only thing that he
constituents.
did as an independent candidate is present his papers to the IEBC.
Exactly.
He was
But
not
his people
nominated by any party. He just went
understood.
there.
His people also voted for him, knowing full well that he was an independent.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that was one of the things that was taken into consideration. In the future, should you then choose to align yourself with somebody else in another party,
You need to tell the people who
make
put
that
you in.
information clear. That's all.
He can say he has done that.
You could.
This
but
man
we don't
can
know.
produce 25 signatures of constituents of Kirinyaga
That
who are
gave
aware.
him a go ahead to
Who
go
are
to
aware
that he was going for this meeting.
whom he had reached out to. He had done public participation, and they had told him, we understand, Mr. Charles Keberu, go ahead and work with the majority side.
So the question is,
Of the Senate.
of these 225, how many other independents
Have
are
done
in
this?
here whose
Alliances on the other
alliances are
not
questionable,
independent.
are not independent anymore?
Yep.
That is a question.
That's
and now,
it.
of things seen and unseen, or things not made clear, the headline on The Nation is stolen 328 billion shillings in aid, cash hidden abroad.
That's a heavy one. Let's do that.
I was just wetting your taste buds, so maybe
let's
we'll
do-
do it in a bit.
Let's
because
just do
it is
this
quite a big
political one. Tomorrow, the Senate will have a special sitting
Uh-huh.
to discuss the ouster of Professor Kithure Kindiki as
Yeah.
deputy governor, deputy governor, deputy speaker of the Senate. Yes,
Why are they baying for Kindiki's blood?
because he's Tanga.
He did not attend.
He did not align.
He did not attend the meeting.
And he did not even sign. He signed the other one saying, no, I don't agree. So, Wewe, you're not towing the line, you're out.
Come and go.
Motion has already been presented by the new whip of the majority in the Senate, and the Senate Speaker has already gazetted this, that there's going to be a special sitting tomorrow.
It's interesting
to
that they
discuss
say if
the
he does
impeachment.
not resign, Senate Deputy Speaker Kithure Kindiki is set to be removed from office during a special sitting. According to the Jubilee Vice Chairman David Mrathe, Kindiki stands accused of two unforgivable acts of commission and omission.
Bas.
Unforgivable. So you're either going or you're going. This is what we see.
Don't even talk to us. We
Yeah,
cannot
we-
forgive you.
No.
So
What you did,
So
And the
somebody,
number of those who have
somebody-
signed, 49 have already said yes.
they're saying we are required to raise 45, which is 2/3, and we already have over 50 senators in support. There's no two ways about it. We have to remove him. Whoever will replace him will be decided by the members, said the official at the heart of the purge in Parliament. If I were a professor, I'd wait for them to remove me.
yeah, why am I
I'm not
resigning if you're
resigning.
going to remove me anyway?
Yeah,
Let me just
so,
wait.
yeah.
Maybe it's tomorrow.
Yeah, so remove me. But my gut feeling is that all these shenanigans are going to backfire at some point for this Jubilee administration,
What?
Jubilee
How?
government. No, it's a gut feeling. I don't have any explanation.
What does your gut tell you? So how is it going to unfold?
Eric.
How's it going to
So-
unfold? You know,
No,
what's going to happen?
Because I'm looking at, this is like impunity,
Rising
left, right,
from
and
the
center.
ashes.
What is that was rising from the ashes? It's called what?
That bad.
Yeah, I remember it. Yes. So this
How
kind
is
of
it that
impunity.
the three of us have completely forgotten something
That-
that's always top of mind?
I know.
Right?
I know. Words always
Phoenix.
The
yes.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it was there somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this, because it's obviously impunity. Like from the word go, it's we are out to get you and we will get you by all means. Then after you've gotten all of them, then what?
kushughulikia.
This is it. In fact, tunakushughulikia.
Tunakushughulikia.
So at some point, and then it's coming at a
It was a
time.
Tangatanga senator. Actually, we no longer know whether he's Tangatanga or not. Charargei, well, he still says he's Tangatanga. Who had said tutakushughulikia.
Yes.
That one is so good.
Now
Anyway.
kushughulikiwa is happening. Hey,
Yeah.
top of the hour. Today's proverb is an African proverb. Maize bears fruit once and dies because it is not rooted into the ground. Maize bears fruit once and dies because it is not rooted into the ground. This is a situation. So after this break, traffic, we will talk about how we are taking our money abroad. Donor money abroad. Good morning. 7 o'clock.
Okay, so for some reason today, nobody's on the road. There's no traffic. Nobody's going anywhere, coming or going. I don't know where Unanongo hides. Nobody's going anywhere. So
You know, those people who are on the road will feel very insulted when you say nobody's on the road.
Is it that people don't have, maybe the internet is down, Wi-Fi is down
Unafikiri
or
sisi ni
something.
nini? Sisi ni pai pai.
make una go sleep. Make una go sleep. Okay. There's no traffic.
There's
really.
not bus.
The people who are on the road are having an easy time this morning. That's what we are saying.
Uh-huh.
There's no clog up anywhere. No wahala for road.
No, Hala for road.
If it's change, Sha.
Wait.
If it's change,
In
Sha.
half an hour.
Give them 30 minutes like this. Kasalago gas for road. Wait.
That is a new one.
That's a new. You
Kasala
just created
gas.
that one. Ati kasala what?
Go gas.
What does that mean?
Trouble. Things will split open, explode.
Kasalago gas.
Go wire.
Kasalago wire.
Yes.
Things were
Wire
hala.
go gas.
Okay.
Okay.
Wahala the roads.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko,
guest host
Nigerian.
season. Hey.
You wanted
City
to
Muga
say
is
your
still.
sister.
Yeah. He's a seasonal host. Now,
Okay.
Kasa, whatever.
Kasala gas. See,
Where is our money?
sometimes, you know how they say, in your native tongue is how you can bring things out. I don't understand what's happening, but let's just look at the story first, okay? This one, a real wire. Because 328 billion shillings in aid is cash hidden abroad. Shame of the rich and powerful, stealing from the poor and vulnerable, exposed in a report on how the World Bank's billions show up in politicians' offshore accounts. How is this, you ask? And this is it. Kenya's elite siphoned 328 billion of World Bank aid payments to offshore accounts in 2 decades, a new study shows. The news comes as the European Union prepares to sanction Mauritius, a tax haven, over money laundering and terror financing. Elite capture of foreign aid, evidence from offshore bank accounts published in February, offers details of how Kenyan ruling elite connive to enrich themselves by wiring foreign aid money meant to help the vulnerable to foreign offshore accounts. The study was conducted by Bob Rikers of the World Bank, Hergen Ewell Andersen of the BI Norwegian Business School, and Niels Johansen of the University of Copenhagen. It covers 2 decades between 1990 and 2010. The study compared data of aid disbursements from the World Bank with foreign deposits from the Bank of International Settlements, focusing on 22 aid-dependent countries, including Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Jordan tops the list globally with over 350 billion of aid to the Middle East country siphoned, followed by Kenya. Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast comes in third. And the Democratic Republic of Congo was fourth with 110 billion shillings stolen. It's interesting because this is on the same page where we also learn that the World Bank, the same Bretton Woods institutions, has just given Kenya a loan, or will add a loan of 106 billion shillings.
Where does the money go? So yes, it's taken out of Kenya. Where does it go?
So what they've done with it initially, the money was carted away to tax havens such as Switzerland, Luxembourg, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore, whose legal frameworks emphasize secrecy and asset protection. Part of the loot was also banked to non-tax havens such as Germany, France, Sweden, according to the report issued by the World Bank. All right.
So the money goes to
those countries,
those capitals.
So their estimates suggest a leakage rate of about 7.5% of the average highly aid-dependent country. Aid capture by ruling politicians, bureaucrats, and their cronies is consistent with the totality of observed patterns. This mechanism cannot explain why the money only flows to havens. It seems less likely that the results reflect profit shifting by multinational firms.
There you go.
There you go. The effect of aid on income through aggregate demand and portfolio adjustments by commercial and central banks. According to the document, though, the ruling elite in Tanzania siphoned 61 billion and Uganda 28 billion during the period under review. The World Bank country director for Kenya, Felipe Harimilo, said the report was an independent study conducted by researchers from the lender and other institutions, but it was not sanctioned by the lender.
What does that mean?
So over 20
They
years.
didn't ask, though, they did not commission this report. The researchers who did it decided to do it on their own with the knowledge of the World Bank, but they basically did not say we are the ones who are commissioning.
So it's not a World Bank research.
No, it isn't.
Basically, that's what they're saying.
But they did get information
But
from
we
them.
They
know
were
that it didn't
aware.
happen.
They're aware of this, and they actually offered some of the information.
And they
to
lacked on
them.
some of this, in future also. When they want to try and tell you, but we give you money and you keep stealing it,
Of course they will.
right? And so this is money that is given as aid to developing countries.
Yeah.
And it arrives there, and then some senior officials in those governments spirit the money away into these tax havens. It ends up in these European capitals and European financial systems. And now they're telling us that, your people have been stealing money and bringing
And
it
the
to
money,
us.
we have kept it for them.
We've had these conversations before. Even in terms of when you talk about those the multinationals and how they spirit the cash. So yes, a company is operating in Kenya, but how much of its profit is actually getting taken out of the country? What's that called? Capital what? They've mentioned it there.
Sorry. Aid capture.
The one of
What did you say?
the multinationals, and what the multinationals are doing with the profit and declaring
Something
profits. Something shifting. Is it profit shifting? What's shifting?
Of the multinationals.
You'll find it as we
I
continue.
will find it.
Yep.
You just carry
So
on.
these companies are making money here, and their profit is basically being taken to those other capitals. Money is given by a financial lender like the IMF, the World Bank, and the others. It comes into the country with clear budget lines and budget items, and this is what this money is supposed to do. Somehow that money finds its way out of the country, and it goes into these capitals, and it stays there. And then we keep talking about, we've signed cooperation agreements on how we can repatriate this money back to where it's supposed to go, and that money goes back to the taxpayer, because we have really also worked on our own internal financial system and laws to ensure that we do not accept money that comes from, we need to be open from both sides, I think. We need to be open from the side of where this money goes in those financial capitals and what those countries are doing, and it's in their knowledge. We're talking about Isabella dos Santos the other day, and where the money went, and what kind of big multinational companies
And the multinationals that advised her
on what to do with the money, and how to hide it so that it just goes and sits in financial capitals. It goes into Lisbon, in others, in Germany, in other countries, and it sits there. Now,
profit sharing is what we're looking at. Profit shifting.
Profit
Yes,
shifting.
that one.
Yeah. Profit shifting. Making money here, taking that money abroad.
I think it's all well and good. Look, I'm all for this whole thing. Is first of all, we can't have people in a situation where we need this money. I mean, the hand is always open. Please give, please help. Loan us this, loan us the other thing. People need the money. And I'm all for keeping people, all of us, righteous when it comes to now spending this money in the right way. However, the finger cannot always be pointed in blame. It cannot always be that way, that you say that, look at these countries around the world. Number 1, Jordan. Number 2, Kenya. Number 3, DR Congo. Number 3, Cote d'Ivoire. Number 4, DR Congo. It cannot be that you say, you guys have given us your money to keep for you. So you who's doing the holding, have you no blame at all in all of this? And that's my question. It can't be that you say, all right, they've given us the money to keep, but then now we're pointing the finger and saying, actually, this is money meant for aid. If truly that was the case, why is there no demand and saying, no, you can't, or even refusal at some point to say, no. If you trace the source of this money and you know very well where this money came from, how about you refuse to keep it? How about you refuse to hold it?
And when you're caught, instead of just saying, oh, yeah, I accept.
I can't refuse their money because we're a tax haven.
The other day, there was a case of Mozambique. This huge multinational bank and other lenders worked to steal money from Mozambique. Oh, we're going to create, some boating systems, some fishing companies, something. Money went out of Mozambique into big multinational banks. And what happened when they were caught? Somebody just admitted and then they were slapped with a small fine, and that story ends there. And the story comes back into, you see, there's such serious corruption in Mozambique at the top levels of government. We should do other kind of reports that tell us these are the big multinational companies. This is where money is sitting in these other Western countries, in Western capitals, that money that belongs to African people, not African governments, African people.
I'm just wondering if the roles were reversed, that this money was from the developed world or one of those countries, and it is being fraudulently or hidden somewhere or placed somewhere. Would the conversation be like this?
Of course not.
So why is it that because it is from developing countries or poorer countries?
The conversation would be, there was this one individual, not the country.
It wouldn't be a country, it would be an individual.
There's this individual who worked with an African country to steal from the citizens of his country.
You see, unfortunately, when the roles are reversed, you deal with an individual and not a nation.
In those countries, the governments in Africa, in all these countries, and the money just ends up in tax havens. And that's what we call them, tax havens.
Last week, the European Commission added Mauritius and Panama and 9 other countries to the list of countries that pose a financial risk to the European bloc. Because they are linked to money laundering and terrorism financing. Mauritius has become a favorite destination for Kenyans to hide their wealth from the taxman. Some of Kenya's wealthy individuals have registered their companies through subsidiaries in Port Louis, Mauritius, due to its favorite tax regime. Countries on the list pose significant threats to the financial system of the European Union, according to the EU draft. That was a document that was put together. So that's just in line with what you were saying just now.
So we are concerned because it's directly threatening them.
Yes.
And then here you mentioned it's individuals who are opening subsidiaries and placing in money in there.
Yeah.
Why can't we just go for the individuals?
As opposed to tainting the country. This is the
Exactly.
thing. Because it can't be, because what you've done with this statement, more or less, is that you've tainted, leave alone that it's tainted for
corrupt.
other things. It's okay. But leave alone that there's corruption. Just shift that aside for a moment. There's another conversation. But what you've done is that you've taken an entire government by virtue of the fact that you've named countries and you've not named individuals. Like you're saying, had it been another country in the Western Hemisphere, for example, individuals would have been called. Or their individual firms would have been called. But you've taken an entire country. So then you've basically alluded to the fact that maybe government knows or is in cahoots with these individuals then who are setting up these accounts.
It's basically
That's what
saying
you've done.
These countries are so corrupt. Even when we try to
help them, they're stealing the money that we give them. They're supposed to raise their citizens out of poverty.
Yep.
That's what you're saying.
And you're not telling us who.
You're
It's
not
in the
saying
last
who.
20 years.
That's
It's in
why
living memory. 20 years, we've just had 2 governments in this country. We have the current Jubilee government, 7 years. The other, Kibaki government 10
10
years.
years.
So we have some 3 years.
So
Okay,
you're saying
let's give
it's
those
either
ones
one
two.
of those two.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that, and I think this patronizing
Tell us who.
attitude.
We even know who's been
yeah.
at the helm of the National Treasury in those 20 years.
No, we can ask them.
We can name them.
You can name them. That's why I think for me, then the Panama Papers were more useful because they listed individuals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
It was names. So the only thing is that nothing ever happened. We knew so and so had put money here, big names. But then nothing ever happened.
ends there.
Consequently. But had something happened, then maybe we wouldn't have this story.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the
Also
countries
with
where
us.
this money then is stored, everybody just has a hands-up approach. Well, look, this is our policy, and we're not going to ask questions about who comes to store their money here. So they store the money, we're going to hold it for them. And if you ask us, we'll say, well, look, this is where they kept it. It has nothing to do with us. But if you ask me, look, the person who put it in just as guilty as the person who's holding it.
Who did they work with?
Yeah, exactly. And why you? Did they come and decide to put this money
Who
with
from
you?
your country did they work with? There's absolutely no way that Kenyan worked alone.
Definitely not.
So money came from World Bank, from IMF. It got into the system. It must have found its way out of the system. Who did they work with?
On this one, and you know, on this one, I'll just have to know. Like I said, money that's meant for the people should go to the people. That's supposed to help and raise people out of poverty, or at least raise the development economic profile somehow, should go to them. But if we're going to point the finger, let it be pointed to the end. Everybody, from beginning to end. Everybody had a role to play in this, should be brought to the gallows together, not just one side of it. Cannot continue to be that way.
It can't be.
People have their eyes open now. It's not the way it was 25 years ago. People's eyes are open. So let's put blame across board.
As we put blame across board and we're looking at 20 years, let's just break that down into 10, all right? 10 years, and let's celebrate. Our mother station, Radio Maisha, is celebrating 10 years of being on the airwaves. It's a decade of ruling the airwaves. For the last 10 years, Radio Maisha has transformed the lives of Kenyans, one voice at a time, one show after another. It's been 10 years of great entertainment, 10 years of great conversations, 10 years of staying ahead together, winning the Kuza Broadcasting Award 2 years in a row in the People's Choice, the radio station category. Basically, this means that we have earned the Radio Zaidia Radio bragging rights. Congratulations to Radio Maisha. Our guys at Radio Maisha are celebrating this week. And we at Spice FM are wishing Radio Maisha all the best for the next 10. And we're looking forward to our own 10 years. Look at those 10 and you're like, hey.
When I grow up.
Sissy, when we grow up.
Happy birthday, Radio Maisha.
Happy birthday. And I like what they say. Radio Zaidia Radio.
Radio Zaidia Radio.
Chaguo la Wakenya.
Kabisa. Tuko mbele.
Pamoja.
17 minutes after 7. This is the situation. Let's take a look at the weather.
Nairobi today, peeking out through those clouds at 16 degrees. However, that might disappear later with a promise of showers later on, with highs of 22 and lows of 14. Nyeri is partly cloudy, actually mostly cloudy this morning, and it's going to go into a whole day of rain that takes us well into the weekend with highs of 22 and lows of 14. Taking a peek into Nakuru, it's partly cloudy at 14 degrees. The sun will come out and then disappear under the clouds. 24 degrees the high with showers and lows of 14. In Eldoret this morning, the sky is mostly sunny, and we will see rain later though, with highs of 23 and lows of 13. Taking into account the West Lake city of Kisumu, mostly cloudy conditions this morning. Chance of rain in the afternoon that will take us again into the weekend with highs of 28 and lows of 19. Mombasa is mostly cloudy at 25 degrees. Showers expected quite soon with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Looking into Malindi, where it's light rain showers that have already started at 24 degrees. Likely to be a wet day throughout until tonight. Highs of 28 and lows of 24. And then on to Kampala, where it's partly cloudy at 20 degrees. Rain showers expected later with highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam this morning is partly cloudy at 24 degrees. We'll see mostly cloudy and a bit of sunny conditions later. Highs of 29 and lows of 22. Taking a look in the commercial capital of Nigeria at 27 degrees, light thunderstorms being experienced in Lagos. We will see showers throughout the day, and we see that the wet front will continue well into the weekend with highs of 32 and lows of 26. We'll take a quick look into Johannesburg for now. We're at 8 degrees earlier on. It was clear skies and sunny conditions. That has dropped down to 7 now. We'll see highs of 19 and lows of 6.
So now that our money keeps being taken away out of this country to those tax havens, what does it take to be a tax haven?
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Or other people. The Jordanians can now bring their money here, and everybody else around, the Congolese can bring their money here. What does it take?
You have to assure with no room of any doubt at all that money will still be safe here. And you know what they say? There's no honor
secrecy
among thieves.
And there'll be secrecy.
Yes. So you may think you're keeping it safe here. You find they have shipped it elsewhere to another tax haven.
So, I mean, the thing is that tax havens, they share little or no information with foreign tax authorities. So it's kind of like the guy with a gun to your head, and regardless of what happens, he's saying nothing. And then they don't require residency or business presence for individuals and businesses to benefit from their tax policies. So it's that.
How does the country benefit from that? So the cash that comes into that country from Kenya, are they circulating that cash in their own economy?
Well,
is it considered a source of foreign exchange?
This is the thing. I don't know. It would be interesting to see what exactly they do with the money, because I doubt
other people's stolen money.
I doubt that it just sits there and gains interest. It would be interesting to see exactly how that money circulates or how it works. I don't think, because at the end of the day, you're able to pick it up whenever you want it. You know, that's another thing.
Or do you pay for storage so that it's a source of revenue?
For the look, there's no. I don't think there's any kind of agreement. Nobody's just going to say, "All right, sure, we
just
have some space. Just keep your money here, and when you need it, you can."
And we'll not ask any questions. There must be something.
There must be something.
There must be something for it. And we should find out. So we'll be speaking to, a financial expert, one of Kenya's great exports. His name is Mohamed Walie. He's a senior advisor to the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority. We'll be speaking to him in the 9 o'clock hour. Maybe one of the questions we'll ask him is, so Mohamed, tunafikiria, what if,
to make money?
The Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia were to find its way to Kenya as a tax haven? One of those questions that we can ask. Also, in the 8 o'clock hour, we'll be speaking with the director of, acting director. He's called what? Acting Director General of Health. Dr. Patrick Amoth. Among the number of things that we will be raising is, number of people who are going to hospitals has drastically reduced. We'll also be asking what we discussed yesterday. Those that need critical care with living conditions and ought to be accessing medical facilities, and clearly they are not now. What's the plan for that? Plus many other questions. If you've got any question that you'd like Dr. Patrick Amoth to respond to, you can tweet us at SpiceFMKE. And also you can post that question on Facebook, SpiceFMKE. So there's a very interesting story on page 2 and 3 of the Standard. And that's one of those, this one will make you laugh.
This one you need to have this kind of story. You know what? You need to have a bed for these kind of stories. Yeah, because cue music. This one.
It's chill.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Pour me a drink. Start the story.
We started with it. Was it on Monday or Tuesday?
Yeah. Went to court and won a court case against his sons. This, we are talking about 88-year-old Wasingishu farmer Jackson Kibor. The man had taken his children to court, and he said, these kids are demanding that I give them a piece of my land. It's my land, it's not theirs. And he won that case. Now, he also said, if they want to inherit me, they need to prove that they're my children. I need DNA conducted to establish whether indeed these are my children. So Here he is telling a story today in the Standard. I have 21 children and 4 prodigal sons. These are 21 that he's not saying that, I need to prove. He's basically saying, I have 21 children and 4 prodigal sons. Fresh from winning a court battle against them, the veteran Uasin Gishu farmer and politician has opened up on his strained relationship with the 4 sons that he took to court. The 88-year-old man won a court case against his sons. He is claiming that his estranged third wife and 4 sons were plotting to sell off his 1,500-acre farm in Kebenes. Before the endless family wrangles and disputes that culminated in long-running court battles, Kibor was a happy family man who could sometimes be seen with his sons supervising maize and wheat deliveries at the National Cereals and Produce Board stores in Eldoret. He was a common figure in Eldoret's evening life, driving himself around in his Mercedes S320. Now, kimeumana. A strange wife and her children.
Want a piece of the pie?
Yeah. And he's saying Shaurienu. So basically, it's a very nice story. It also talks about how he got his wealth, his rags to riches story. It's a classic one. Young Kibor was first employed by a settler white farmer as a farm laborer before independence. He was later hired to drive lorries for the local farmer, Jonathan Kibogi, who is now deceased, in 1958. Like Kibor today, Kibogi owned several properties in Eldoret town. After driving around East Africa selling Kibogi's farm produce, Kibor says he saved enough money to buy his first piece of land, 836 acres at Kipkabus. And he bought this for 40K. 40,000 bob could get you 836 acres of land.
That was a lot of money, though.
40,000 bob in those days.
Those days, it's like 4 million.
We don't know which days, though. But yeah, let's say those days.
The chap is 88 years old, so you can just imagine.
This was his first property that he settled with his wife, Mary, and used as a launchpad for his successful farming business that includes 1,543-acre Mafuta farm at Kebenes, 357 acres in Moiben, 1,166-acre farm in Kitale. He's a man of means.
You can say that again.
You can read that story. So page 3 is telling the story of his.
So he's saying that he only has problems with 4 sons he got with Jepto, who he divorced in December 2018. Kibor claims these are the only ones who have been colluding to sell off some of his property, which he vows to protect with all his life. Then at the very end of the other story is that according to Kibor, only his third son, Eric, a pilot in USA, will be spared the DNA test because he has been good.
Yeah.
Because he's a pilot in the USA.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
He's been good.
Yeah, so you've been good.
Ini damu yangu. This
Yeah.
one, I'm not doubting. The way this one behaves
And even where
is
he is, and how
clearly
he's
my
doing
son.
now.
And and where he is.
And his success is clearly my...
Yeah.
Hey, what doing?
But you are doing it. We've been listing off my land.
I don't even know whose children you
So
are.
let's confirm, because you're misbehaving. You
Your
cannot be my
Your
children.
behavior leaves a lot to be desired, even by my own blood.
So I
And
don't
DNA.
think it's about blood, but just
Yeah.
that you're making life for me impossible. Do a DNA test,
That's the only way.
and then it comes out negative.
Shockeroo.
Eh.
The drama.
The Jackson Kibor. At
Ah.
least he's making us happy.
That's an interesting story.
Something to smile about.
Though I'm sure the other people at the end of this, the 4, are quite unhappy.
Oh,
They are.
This is a very distressful time
Of
for them.
course, of course.
And their mother.
Of course.
Especially, anyway, they say paternity is an opinion. Only maternity
It's
is...
a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm sure for her, it's a difficult time because really,
she knows who her
she
children
knows.
are.
Yeah. So if she said, those are your children, who are we to doubt?
Good thing is that DNA is not something that you need to go to the
DNA
moon
doesn't
to go.
lie.
It's just
It's just,
DNA.
yeah.
You can do DNA. And just say, unataka DNA? Kaa hapo.
Cap.
Just sit there. Angalia, this is his blood. Look, so that you don't say that this was IBC'd at your open server. Look, blood, there, test, result. Happy? Okay. Number 2, finish.
Finished.
Sasa tumaliza hii story. Can you give us 1,200 acres, my friend?
What if, like, we saw the story of the twins that were swapped?
Yeah.
Then you find something like that. The child you thought was your child.
It's actually not. Good grief.
Anyway,
Okay.
let's wait for the
Oh
DNA.
yeah, it would be very unfortunate for
I
that
know.
that one who's found not to be his son. Be like, you don't even know who to look at. Do you want to look at mom or do you want to look at dad? At this point, you're like,
what happened? And
Fanya
Kibori,
tena.
and he's very categorical.
Take a
Anyone that
nasal
is not
swab.
my son, we are
Out.
kicking you out of this property.
Out.
Mzee Kibor.
Another
Okay.
very interesting one.
Okay, I know the interesting one that you're looking at. Carry on, Eric.
Page 10.
Uh-huh.
Standard.
Today, this is full of treasure.
This
Standard
is a
newspaper.
long story.
Uh-huh.
It's a riddle of traders who cannot explain 500 million shillings in their bank accounts. This is a businessman who received millions from Mandera County, but he claims he doesn't know why some of the deposits were made into his accounts. He's not the first person. We've even seen other, political scientists who have done work and money ends up in their bank account, 1.2 million shillings, 12 million shillings, and they're like, huh?
Where is this from? I know I did
From
some work,
NYS.
but I didn't expect.
12 million NYS
Mimi.
in my account.
Mimi.
Okay, fanyeni hivi, I'm going to return that money. Okay, kama ni hivyo. I'm going to return that money. Anyway, so here is the story of a man, Meet Abdi Mohammed Ali, a director of livestock production who ensures that animals are well fed and are producing enough milk when they die. Oh, and when they die, either by the butcher's sword or natural causes, he assesses the carcass to determine if it can be sold as meat or be buried. Abdi is married to Sadia Sheikh, and the couple have 12 children and an equal number of grandchildren. He shoulders the cost of schooling 10 children who are in secondary school. Sheikh, on the other hand, is contented being a housewife. Abdi has a very heavy burden of paying school fees and other costs of maintaining this large family. I mean, you can imagine, 12 kids, 12 grandchildren, is a large family, he has a lot to do. Now, Abdi, according to papers that he filed in court, is diabetic and is battling cholesterol, which requires him to visit doctors who help to keep him alive. He also runs an unnamed family business, which requires him to pay suppliers and employees. Despite all these needs, Abdi and Sheikh operate 2 bank accounts whose cash they have never touched. The two would boast of being the rare millionaires because they have 62 million shillings in the bank. They've never touched that money. The said bank accounts received suspicious cash deposits in Kenya shillings, and the funds are suspected to be stolen or fraudulently acquired from Mandera County by the respondents, their agents or representatives, and deceitfully deposited in the said accounts. This is according to the lawyer for the Asset Recovery Agency. It's these colossal deposits to the accounts that attracted the Asset Recovery Agency, which is demanding that Abdi explain how he made his millions. The Muthoni Kimani Agency has since gone ahead and frozen the 2 accounts. The secret to the unused cash in the account, according to Abdi, is it accrued from proceeds of selling honey, selling cereals, and selling camels. However, he has no documents or receipts or persons to corroborate his story. Now, of course, when you're selling honey and camels, and what you do receipts every time you do some of these things. You go to Mama Mboga and she gives you
A receipt.
these guys, even them. Hawataki watu waishi vizuri. Enemies of development. So this whole story basically is just showing this is a couple that have some good cash in their account. Account number 1 has 40 million shillings. Account number 2 has 20 million shillings. Now there's the other story of another gentleman. His name is Ali Abdi Ibrahim, who has 2 accounts, and he's have some good cash.
Not asking where this money has come from, or they are saying they're aware of where this money has come
Yeah.
from. Because, they've been flagged already by authorities and asking questions in terms of where this money has come from. Some of these individuals have had their accounts frozen already. Because the question is, how does a trader like you in camels and honey have this kind of money? Hey.
And their deposits that just keep coming into this
Keep
account.
coming regularly. And we're not talking about
And
3
there's no
shillings
withdrawal.
either.
It just comes,
No.
stays
And
there.
it stays there.
Stays
And
there.
the rationale is that it's being saved for retirement. And in my old age with my 12 children, I'm going to have to take care of somebody.
Of course.
Yes. So
Jackson Kibor
that's why I'm not
saved.
using the money now.
That's why Jackson Kibor is rich today, because he saved. Now, why? The other man is called Ali Abdi Ibrahim, a man who claims to be a businessman, and he has a load to explain. He needs to provide proof of how 455 million shillings from the same county ended up in his 2 bank accounts. After investigators analyzed his accounts, they found 3 million shillings from the Abdi Maalim. After asking Ali to explain what the money was meant for, he replied he doesn't remember why it was being sent to him. How much? 3 million. From
I can't remember.
From I know him. Ali nitumia sikumbuki. Ali has 2 accounts at Equity. In one account, 168 million shillings was wired, while in the second one, he got 216 million shillings. However, at the same time, the Asset Recovery Agency went after him. They only had 42 million shillings. His story surrounds the deal to construct Mandera County headquarters. He allegedly owns a company known as Risala General Contractors alongside one Mohammed Yakub Isaac. On April 23, 2018, Governor Ali Roba led the county to seal a deal with a firm called Bami Investment for a total of 455 million shillings. This is the amount of money that we are asking Nani to explain. 455 million and 455 million here. To construct its headquarters, Bami is allegedly owned by one Bashi Maalim. According to court documents, 3 days after Bami signed the contract with the county, on April 26, 2018, it subcontracted Risala to carry out the project at a tune of 364 million shillings. Some good biashara there. You sign a deal for 455, you subcontract someone to do the job at 364. Good business. Mm-hmm. In the report provided by the Ali to ARA, the agreement was that Bami would pay the contract amount to his personal account, and in this account he received 134 million from Bami. And there was a second account, which was not provided in the contract, which got 75 million shillings. The invoices he provided were in his name and not Risala. Risala has been contracted. The person who is invoicing is an individual. There is investigations reveal that Ali also received money from 4 other companies: Kute Supplies, Frontier Engineering, Blue Sky General, Green County Construction, all which had received funds from Mandera County. So basically, this is we are saying money has come from Mandera County. We've constructed a beautiful, I've seen pictures of the beautiful headquarters in Mandera, okay? Mm-hmm. The company that was contracted for 455 million shillings. And now we are wondering, so this company is the one that was that was hired to do the job. The job was done. But the person who was invoicing the developer is an individual.
An individual, not a company.
Yeah.
And then money goes. So it's those questions that basically the ARA is saying, okay, now you.
Something is wrong here. Just
how come
explain
this
it
money
to me.
is in your account and not even a company account? What's the story here? It's smelling like money has been stolen from Mandera County.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm just seeing from all of this is the people of Mandera County have lost money.
Some money.
500 million.
That could have 500 million. I mean, Makueni Mother and Child Hospital was built fully and equipped at 135 million shillings.
And this is a hospital with equipment inside.
Yes.
Built, equipped, staffed.
Stocked,
135 million shillings. Now here,
It's
Mandera
a county
County
headquarters.
Yes. Mandera County, when you look at our indices of maternal mortality rate, Mandera County has the highest in the country when you're talking about mothers who lose their lives during delivery. 500 million is 3 fully fledged hospitals
Some change.
These are proper
in
hospitals.
different corners of Mandera County. Tell me how many lives could have been saved there.
Oh, see, that's
We
what
have
you
a
need to do.
headquarters.
Look, it's necessary to look at. It's necessary to. Oftentimes, we often say that money, when money is lost, it is just that money is lost. However, it is important to look at the other side of it. That what could you actually gain if that money was used
if it
the right
wasn't
way?
lost.
And when you're able to see that, I mean, look at that beautiful picture that we've been painted for just now. An entire hospital, staffed, equipped, everything can be done in a county that actually needs it. That really needs it, because you're looking at high indexes in the entire country. So you can imagine what could happen in other places where obviously money has been pilfered, is probably very basic, stolen, right?
So 455 built a headquarters.
135.
And here 135 built a hospital.
An entire
A
hospital.
hospital. Health workers, doctors deliver in that facility free of charge. Because remember, they have the Makueni Universal Health Coverage, you have the NHIF. You literally walk in and walk out. Whether you're a peasant, whether
Whoever you
are,
are.
the governor himself gets
It's treated there.
in his facilities. because of the kind of investment they've put in there. Right now, when people are struggling...
And this 135, basically, what's the bed capacity of that hospital? It's over
I think
a couple of hundred.
More than 100, maybe 200.
It is.
Yeah.
More than 100. It even has ICU. Then we're talking about equipping it, even putting beds, putting curtains, building a kitchen, building labs, all those things.
In hospital, it is good. It is good for 135 million. It's just that they don't have as many patients as you would expect, which is sometimes a good thing, because then it means probably you're doing something, or your peripheral facilities are doing something, because it's a referral hospital. But now, if you draw the parallel between Makueni and now Mandera has, when you're looking at any of your health indicators, for example, they are not going to be good. Maternal mortality, highest in the country. When you're also looking at malnutrition, when you're looking at being marginalized because of terror issues and whatnot, as in there are so many issues we can list about Mandera County. Yet here now, how can you not explain even 50,000 in your account? You can explain. Even 1,000 shillings in your account, you can explain.
There, it can be explained. You can ask a question, you can set up a query and say, where did this money come from? It can be traced. So some of these reasons that are being given, come on. What is that thing you say, Una Tubeba, what?
Malenge.
We shouldn't even be having some of these conversations sometimes. You know very well where this money came from. There's some diversionary tactics that are being played here. Somewhere is amiss, right? You can smell it from a mile away.
Devolution works.
Clearly. Thievery has also been devolved.
Devolution works. How else would you get
this kind of money?
How else would you get this kind of money? Well, devolution works. Anyway, let's take this short break. Take a look at traffic. Now, I've given you some 40 minutes so that you can consolidate everything that's happening on the roads. Tell us now. Is there traffic?
No.
Is there wahala?
No. Not seen there. Nope. There really isn't. Not much happening on the roads today. Nothing there. I don't know where Una don't go around to. Una they fear COVID. That's why people finally are afraid of COVID. No traffic as such. People are able to get where they are going really, really quickly this morning, and without much of a headache, unless it's really happening and nobody's telling us. But as I see, no wahala for road at all. At all.
Traffic.
Someone, posted on social media, petrol is now 80 bob. 1,000 gives you 25 liters. I cannot stay at home anymore. If the matchbox is finished, I go out for shopping at Gitaru.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Then I come home
Spice up yourself.
and ensure that they are 60. If they are not, I return it, go all the way, buy another one from Pipeline.
Mornings
ones that you can
done
enjoy.
right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
That thing, by the way, I went to fuel last week. And so I was wondering, why are these people not done? It's taking longer than usual. Only for me to realize, actually, now I can order fuel in liters and not in the money that I have available. Then I had so much fuel for little money. Like, this is fantastic.
Well, that's one thing that we can be very happy about, no?
And now you have nowhere to go.
Exactly.
That's why this guy is saying I can go and buy Matchbox and Gong Hyper from all the way from somewhere in Limuru. Go home, count the matchsticks. If they're not, you go back to Gong Hyper and return, and then you cross all the way to Pipeline and buy another Matchbox.
That's why there's no traffic.
And on your way home, you pass by somewhere else in Kikuyu and buy a quarter of meat.
Just find something to do.
Yeah.
Somewhere to go.
Just find some place to go.
You might as well use it while you can, because look, times there are changing, man, and this could change very soon.
No, I hope the fuel prices don't go up, because really, globally, in the US, they were struggling. They are paying people to take fuel, literally. So surely, surely, between now and by the end of the year, that fuel price should remain like that, hopefully.
If you feel like you've missed someone and you want to call them, don't call them. Go see them.
Go see
Don't
them.
go see them.
No, stay home.
Stay home. What's wrong with you?
Eric, stay home. You
You
can
know-
video call.
Ask them. So
You
uko
can do
wapi?
Zoom.
You ask uko wapi? The guy tells you, niko hapa Karen. You're like, all right, sasa mimi niko pipeline. Si tukutane Karura.
Where you can keep distance.
Both drive to Karura, go park, walk, keep distance, talk, tell him what you want to tell him.
Have your
Then-
masks on.
Yeah, have your mask on. Then say
Sanitize.
goodbye. Go back home.
It's nothing like meet me halfway in Karura.
Go to Karura. Let's come back to this story, Basi. I think you brought in a very interesting angle. We are talking about a story here where the Assets Recovery Agency has gone to court for asking several people to explain how they have 500 million shillings in their bank accounts. These people are all linked to Mandera County, and the suspicion here is that this money has come out of the Mandera County government and ended up in these people. There was a construction of a Mandera County headquarters at 455, and this is official. A company was contracted to construct the Mandera County headquarters at 455 million shillings. This company subcontracted another company to conduct that job at 364 million shillings. Now, 455 million shillings is what we're questioning. Watch out now how these other guys ended up with the money in their accounts. 450. By the time a county government is deciding, we want to construct a new swanky new headquarters, and it's going to cost us 455 million shillings. Is that the best use of that money? In fact, even if it was the best use of that money, is it really possible that that headquarters cost 455 million shillings? Knowing what we know about less amounts of money that have been put by other county governments. And the example here is the Makueni. We keep talking about this hospital.
It's a 200-bed capacity.
200-bed capacity.
120 for adults and 80 for neonates, because it's specialized maternal and child health. 135 million.
And this, when we talk about the neonates,
newborns.
It's the newborns.
Yeah, between birth and 28 days of life. So this means these are your delicate people, literally.
Yep.
And those first few hours for mothers, for parents, they would know the process of delivery is very critical. The first few hours of life is very critical before you're told, now your baby is good, go home. The mother is good, go home. So that's a very critical time. If we look at
So even the facilities, it's like incubators,
yes,
oxygen,
yes.
and all
of those things. And then just apart from that, I remember we've been saying healthcare is labor intensive. You may have the most fancy equipment, like we've seen with the managed equipment services. You may have the most fancy of everything, but if you don't have people who know how to use those things, then they could just be decorations or some part of the furniture for the hospital. So one of the most important things is to have qualified staff. Your well-trained nurses, your well-trained midwives and doctors are a critical part of that whole ensemble, where you need all of those for you to now say, we are good, we are offering quality healthcare services. So even without the fancy things, if you have basic staff that know what to do, then at least you will offer some good services. So the Makueni Mother and Child Hospital is up and running. It's offering those services. It's clean.
How many millions?
135. Now, if you look at the causes of top of the list, maternal mortality, hemorrhage, bleeding, top of the list, synonymous with the situation room, blood crisis. Look at where Mandera is. If Mandera needs blood, where do they get it from? Could this money have been used to probably set up a blood transfusion unit there, because you know your mothers will definitely need it?
Yep.
If you look at issues of malnutrition, poor nutrition, undernutrition, you're likely to find it in Mandera. And that translates to anemia of mothers. So during delivery, if you have a low blood count that we did not sort out, give you iron supplements, folic supplements, then it means you're a high-risk mother even during delivery, and any little blood loss could potentially threaten your life. Wouldn't this money then have been used to cater to nutrition for the mothers and the children in Mandera. When you look at neonatal deaths, children, the birth period, they are likely to pick infections. So you need to have your essential medicines readily available. Look at where Mandera is. If you had a good supply chain of medicines and whatnot, you can make it better if you don't already have it, so that you know that mothers, children who need treatment will get that treatment, but we don't. So now I was just looking up the numbers. 3,795 mothers out of every 100,000 die in Mandera because of pregnancy-related complication, the maternal mortality rate in Mandera. For the country, we are around 388, last I checked. Let's say under 400, the whole country. These guys are 10 times more. Would this money have made more sense
to
in
go
addressing
into
some
this,
of those issues?
Yeah, addressing those.
And remember, when you lose a mother, there are children who will suffer for life, and you will perpetuate the cycle of poverty and suffering for those children. And also remember, again, statistics, the fertility rate in Mandera is one of the highest again in the country, where on average the country is at 3, they would be at 5, 6. So that means every mother has so many children to take care of. So if you lose one mother, there are several other children who have lost a parent, who have lost their caregiver, the immediate caregiver.
And this is just looking at healthcare. We have not looked at
we have not
other
touched anything
sectors.
else.
If we just went into agriculture and looking at what it could do, provision of water, provision of sanitation services.
You know?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Well, I mean, roads and like, again,
Ex-
water
exactly.
and power.
Even basic roads. Part of the reason why mothers would die is because the road network is really bad in Mandera. If for anyone who's gone there, they can attest to that. And the security issue is a whole other thing. Like if you're going to Mandera, you're not sure about your security, the road network is bad. Would it not have then been better to sort out roads so that any mother who needs access to healthcare services, any trader or any farmer who needs to deliver their goods somewhere, have easy access?
I mean, just try and imagine. I mean, which was another thing that's so prevalent in the area. Imagine a woman who is pregnant with issues of fistula, for example, and is walking to a medical facility, or trying to access road transport in a vehicle on a road that is terrible. All of these things are happening in the same area, all right? The roads are terrible. Fistula is prevalent. She's a young mother who is about to about to go and deliver. The medical facility is poor. All of those things in the same place at the same time. Now imagine when you could apply that money and have roads that actually are functioning well, a medical facility that has everything that it needs. It's got water, it's got the right medical attendants, it's got the equipment that is necessary to have this done. And at the same time, she's able to go deliver and be treated with specialty treatment. Just imagine a state like that.
It will make a big difference. And you see, this big difference to one family translates to many others. And at the end of the day, from that one that is able to benefit because of prudent use of money, means 100,000 plus others that are able to benefit from that. And so the whole county, at the end of the day, stands to benefit.
I think we should be talking about what can happen and what can be. I think we spend a lot of time talking about the lack therein. And we say that, you know what, we don't have roads, we don't have this, we don't have that. Look, we also have a huge deficit because money is mismanaged, it's misallocated, it is stolen. So let's say that, you know, we see these amounts of money being stolen. And it's beautiful what you've done. 500 million, a fraction of that, this is what it can do. So that our eyes can become open.
It will be
to
three
the reality.
facilities, and you can position them strategically across the county, because we know that the county is vast in terms of the geographical terrain and spread. So you can have 3 good facilities in 3 different corners of the county, so that as many people as possible can access at the shortest time possible. Because again, you do not want to concentrate everything at your headquarters. What happens to the people who are living kilometers and kilometers away? You need to take services as close to them as possible. So for me, it's when I see 500 million lost or cannot be explained, may I just see women and children suffering. I see farmers,
So
security
let me read you a
people,
story on the
teachers.
Daily Nation of the 16th of April 2020. Now because we have BCs before COVID, what do we have now? This one is CE, COVID era or what?
AC.
Hmm?
After
AC.
COVID.
Now
In COVID.
in
In COVID,
I
I
see.
see.
All right. So April 26th, 2020, IC. Are you ready? An
Yes.
administrator in Mandera South says he was forced to release 32 people from quarantine in Elwak town after it emerged that they were being held under deplorable conditions. The Deputy County Commissioner, Abdikarim Dubat, told the nation that on Thursday that the decision was reached after they found out that the people lacked essential services. We were holding these people because of the curfew since they arrived at Elwak town last week, with the county government suspecting that the bus had come from Nairobi. We were pushed to place the group into forced quarantine. But we don't have a gazetted quarantine facility in Elwak, and still there is nothing we can use to hold people under medical observation. He maintained that he could not oversee a process that would subject people to suffering. There were no plans to provide anything that was needed. That forced us to set them free. None of them had shown any symptoms, but here's a story of, well, we are dealing with COVID. We are talking about something that happened last month. People required to go into quarantine. There was no proper quarantine facility set up. But we have seen before, we had seen some nice pictures of the Mandera County Referral Hospital ICU, which had been converted and being made ready for COVID.
For COVID.
Looking very nice. See? Painted, some nice pink color, some nice new beds. Although I think there are 4 or 5 beds in that ward. I'm saying we are ready for COVID. So you can say, is there work that's been done to improve the medical facilities in Mandera?
There's a problem. Mohammed Ibrahim on social media says this morning, I'm in Mandera. This place is reeling with corruption and all major projects were used to steal money. The county headquarters,
Number
just
one.
talked about, Mandera Town, Tarmac Road, non-existent.
What do you mean, Abdi? Non-existent. Tarmac is black.
The supposed town Tarmac Road, okay?
So what is this? What is he seeing?
He not there.
Is he seeing brown
The
tarmac?
The TTC college that was supposed to have been renovated, the MTC college that was supposed to have been renovated, Elwak Hospital and Mandera Referral Hospital. Big problems. Name them. The governor and his cronies, meanwhile, are swimming in money. Mohammed Ibrahim in Mandera Town.
Sour grapes, Mohammed.
What's
Kama
wrong with you?
unataka
Should we
pesa
just read a
usiongee
story?
vizuri.
There are problems. There are problems here.
But that's there was supposed to have been some renovations of the road. It hasn't been done. Hasn't been seen. Some teacher training college renovations not done.
MTC college.
MTC renovations
Elwak Hospital, Mandera Referral Hospital.
not done.
Not done. Meanwhile, the governor and his cronies are swimming in money.
This is not the only one.
Nope,
Nope.
it isn't.
It isn't.
This is not the only one.
In fact, we also see stories coming from Wajir and Garissa on the same issues of how money from county government is ending up in people's hands, in people's pockets. You know, it's full in the pocket, and you're just carrying it in your hands.
Or putting it in people's accounts for whom they have no explanation as to where it came from.
And
I mean,
they're
for
not
crying
even-
out
they're
loud.
not
I'm not
they're
buying that.
withdrawing it.
I don't buy it either.
I'm
You
not
know?
buying. I
don't
did no
buy it.
explanation. Ha,
Yeah,
ha, ha.
I don't know where it came from. Really? This is money that I'm actually saving for retirement. Get out of here. You know when money comes into your account. I'm telling you now, look in your account. Mercy even said 1,000 shillings. 1,000 shillings is plenty. 500 shillings comes into your account for which you do not know what it is about. You will ask. And you will find the source of it. You will know. Whether
But
you
I'm
keep it or
reminding
not
you
is a totally
guys,
different
yeah,
story.
But we've seen this before. Mutahi Ngunyi told us the other that time for the NYS, money went into his company's account, and he's like,
Where is this? I don't know where this money is from.
Ha.
"I billed NYS, I was paid. Now this other extra money, if they sent to my account,
Did we buy it? That story.
The question is, did we believe the story? Whether you said it or not, and whether it had any sway in terms of persuasion, that's totally different.
chose not to believe Shaurien.
Look,
You've got to be positive."
around the country, unfortunately, these things are happening. And it is very sad also that then we see counties who we already know for some reason, one or another, are marginalized, either because of their geographical positioning or in terms of historical disadvantage. Before devolution, we saw that some of these counties really suffered. Now we see that there's been disbursement of funds, or at least management of funds.
And they're getting a lot
level.
more money.
They're getting a lot more money by virtue of the fact that historically they have been marginalized.
Yeah.
The painful thing is that, okay, now we get something out and we start to see that maybe something can be done. It becomes worse because then people have seen an opportunity to be able to steal. Outrightly, and it's not even hiding it anymore.
The EACC, the Asset Recovery Agency, and all those. I think now, even the way we were talking last week to EACC, and the kind of win that they got at the Supreme Court, that's a good thing. Start going for these monies.
I think so. And I would like to see
can't explain you lose.
Beyond
Just how
going
much?
for that money, take that money and then make sure it is applied and appropriated for what it was meant to be in the first place.
Yep.
Because, for me, the fight against corruption or all these other things has to be taken to the end. We get the money back, put it to the proper use.
Where was it supposed to go?
Yes, where was it supposed to
go?
go?
It's like arresting somebody who was heading towards Mombasa. Ulikuwa unataka kwenda wapi? Machakos. Turn back. And ensure that they get to Machakos.
It's supposed to be used for.
Yeah. Coming to the top of the hour, today's proverb: maize bears fruits once and dies because it's not rooted into the ground. Once again, maize bears fruit once and dies because it's not rooted into the ground. Keep it right here. We'll be speaking to Dr. Patrick Amoth in the next hour. He's the Acting Director General of Health. All those questions on our healthcare system.
Sorry, but as I know, happy now, say traffic day for Utawala. That's now good, Abi. Utawala traffic building up bad at the APTC stretch. So there's an extension of yesterday's madness that kind of woke up today. So okay, sorry, say I don't happy, but I don't happy small. Say day small. So at least we get something to tell on that. Apart from that, nothing else major going on right now. So know that if you're on that road, you're going to be there for a while because it's still stretching out, unfortunately. We don't have any accidents as per yet, so that's good. I think very good. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us, or let us know on Twitter if you do see anything. If you do see anything out of the ordinary, but other places is looking good. It is.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times.
Kenya's biggest
Ndu
conversation,
Oko,
broadcasting Nairobi,
Nigeria.
Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. And remember, this week we are celebrating our mother station, Radio Maisha, that turns 10 this year. 10 years of ruling the airwaves, and a very happy birthday and a happy anniversary to Radio Maisha. Now, let's talk about health. Well, that's what we've been talking about even in the previous hour. Okay. Let's
in COVID. I see we cannot stay away from talking about health because at the end of the day, I think we are slowly learning that the health of the people is the health of the economy and the health of everything else. Looking at how such a small virus has brought everything to a standstill. It has grounded planes across the world. So yes, health is important, and I think what we are looking at now is the stories. It's a story on page 6, the editorial on the Standard. Where are the sick? the riddle of deserted hospitals and beds. And here, an example is Kenyatta National Hospital, with a bed capacity of 2,000, only has 1,200 admitted patients. So where are people? Because as we were asking, if you had cancer before COVID, you probably have it still now. If you had diabetes, then you have it now. If you had hypertension, then you have it now. So where are people seeking their regular medical attention? What is happening? Is it that it's telemedicine? Is it that people have learned to treat and manage themselves at home? Or are they learning to live with their pain and suffering? What is happening? Where are people? Where are people who would need, and because we know there's still a demand for healthcare services?
At KNH, so the Chief Executive, Evans Kamuri, is saying that there are how many patients now?
1,200.
1,200 against the bed capacity of 2,000. So 800 beds are empty.
Yes.
800 beds at KNH.
Yes.
Where when things were at their worst, you would even see
wouldn't get a
people were
bed.
sharing beds.
Exactly.
Remember, this was bad. You would have some people who were admitted who were connected to their drip line on the floor.
Yeah.
Same hospital.
And when you see this at KNH, it also tells you that other health facilities, it's
Empty.
some facilities are actually empty.
Yeah. Remember when we talked to the chair, Kenya Association of Private Hospitals, Abdi, and they've had to literally lay off staff. They've had to do pay cuts also because their revenues are dwindling because people are not coming to hospital.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the hospital business thrives on people being unwell or people trying to keep well and healthy.
Yep.
That's where you get your business from. So if people are not coming to hospital because of whatever reason, and here we are looking at non-communicable diseases, cancer, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, name them, all of them. People are not coming to hospital to seek any healthcare, to do regular checkups, to refill their medication. So where are people? Where are they getting their healthcare services from? And then most importantly, why are people not seeking healthcare services, yet we know they need them? So why are people not coming in, and where are they
Where
going?
are they? Because we're talking about people who, now the number of cancer cases, many, the number of other illnesses, and cancer is wide, right?
It is.
And number of other illnesses. Okay, people going at to the casualty wing, the emergency. So we can say, because reduced transport, so not many accidents. You can say of reduced transport as well, the borders, which had even gotten their own wings set up in county hospitals, could have reduced. That is okay. But there are other illnesses that people still require to go to hospital. There are people who need to go for insulin shots regularly, and they're only administered in hospital. They are not trusted to do this for themselves. There are other people who require, maybe to go for checkups every so often.
Yeah.
There's
Dialysis. The guy you were telling us yesterday from Kandara, who needs to do his dialysis twice every week. Dialysis you cannot do at home.
You have to go to hospital.
I think it's necessary for us to ask that where people are going, because it's very interesting also, because not just in hospitals where people need to go and get major health care, but even like the minor things that you saw people going into hospital for, the normal flu. I mean, because even yesterday I took my son to the hospital just here and it was empty. We were in and out in an hour. Normally we would be there for 4.
That's a whole day.
Queuing.
4-5 hours, queue lab, queue queue doctor, queue pharmacy, queue clearance, it would be 4 hours. 1 hour in and out, and even bought a snack. So it's the question really is, where is everybody? Nobody is going to seek these
Could
medical
we say
services.
also that for children, because children are not going to school, so the interaction has reduced also?
True.
It's true, but we've just begun flu season in Kenya, have we not?
Yeah, but then again, also hand washing, sanitizing, masking actually reduces these communicable
these
diseases.
communicable diseases.
Yeah, the upper respiratory tract infections, now like the flus. Even now with the flu season, because we are doing regular hand washing, you're cleaning your house with bleach, so chances are they'll be
You wouldn't
significantly
see.
reduced.
Yeah.
That and diarrheal diseases. So that's a plus from the COVID era. It's a plus that our communicable diseases are manageable.
People are
But
not
you see,
sick, yeah.
the one that can either be catastrophic or impoverishing are the non-communicable diseases. Those are the ones that are very weighty. Because if you look at flu, for example, you actually don't need to go to hospital for flu.
No.
That one you can manage at home normally, unless obviously, let's say if it's a child and they're getting febrile convulsions, so maybe you'll need help. But on a regular day, COVID, no COVID, you can be able to take care of your flu at home. And now that we are keeping clean, it means I wouldn't be worried about flu. Now I wouldn't be worried about diarrhea. I wouldn't be worried about TB, because people now, when thinking they have COVID, they're actually getting diagnosed to have TB and being put on treatment. That's a plus. Those ones we can handle. But the other non-communicable disease, and if you look at cancer, every year we have 28,000 new cases. So it means people are still developing cancer as we go along. But because they're not going to hospital, they'll not be able to be diagnosed early. And we have always complained that 2/3 of our cancer cases present late. So now in a situation where people are not regularly going for medical checkup or regularly getting their mundane signs and symptoms checked out, it means this cancer will not be diagnosed early. By the time we are diagnosing and knowing it's cancer, it's probably at a stage where we can hardly do anything about it, which for me is a major concern. If we do not get to diagnose your hypertension now, it means later you'll be coming back with a stroke or coming back with kidney failure, and it means we need to put you on dialysis. You probably need a HDU, high dependency unit, or you need, critical care. So the consequences of not being able to identify and diagnose these major non-communicable diseases are dire down the road.
So, but do you think, just looking at the numbers, does the fear of then either being diagnosed with COVID trump the necessity of then going to be treated for other diseases that people might have?
It looks like that is the case.
That's why people are not going to hospital.
Case, yeah, because you think if I get COVID, the way we have messaged COVID is that it's a deadly disease. You will die. We don't want people to die. So if you have a threat of dying now versus a threat of dying next year,
you're going to take next year.
You're going to take next year. So I think
give yourself the year.
Yeah, to enjoy. So I think it's how we have
so it's messaging for COVID.
Yeah, maybe we need to change, because we're also looking at our numbers. We've said 80% are asymptomatic. So maybe we need to tell people, just come. You're better off knowing your diagnosis, so that you know how to deal with it, to manage it, because it will not kill you.
It won't kill you.
And if you're elderly or with pre-existing conditions, these are the measures that we have in place to take care of you. So come to hospital, let us know what's happening with you, because you're better off knowing now.
But how do we connect this fear? If we were saying that we've heard stories of somebody who went to hospital and they had other symptoms altogether, they had a headache, and they went to hospital, and then they ended up being taken into isolation because of COVID. If those were the stories that were rampant, then you can say, hey, I hear nowadays when you go to hospital, you go into COVID, you're not coming out in 14 days, and then you'll still pay a hefty bill. If we have not had those stories, why would we link that fear to the lack of hospital visits? Because people are still going out. If you look now, we keep talking about the way people are out there, going to markets, going to live their lives. If somebody is living their life as normal, and they haven't heard that if I go to a health facility, I'm going to be classified as a COVID victim, how do we link that fear?
I think it comes from, and the editorial here mentions, that how we painted quarantine and isolation facilities. We have militarized, criminalized the whole issue about quarantine and isolation. So if you think about it, you'd rather be free out here than be in a quarantine isolation somewhere, and you do not know your fate. You have no control over it. But if we had clear messaging about quarantine. Either you can quarantine at home, you can isolate at home. Under these circumstances, then maybe that would change and would make people be more willing to get diagnosed or identified. So maybe it's about how we have treated quarantine and isolation.
Well, that's
maybe
true, 'cause
those
first
consequences.
impressions are lasting impressions. So even if along the way, that's the thing about getting communication right from the beginning. If along the way the communication has changed, the very first messaging that you put out there is what is likely to stick in the minds of people.
Yeah.
Because even with conversations that we've had, I mean, you hear people still saying, "Oh, I don't want to go into quarantine." And initially it was because I don't want to have to pay for it. But we still see, I mean, just yesterday we're told of a story of young men right around Kibra who were sitting around under a tree, and all of them, all 15 of them yesterday, were rounded up, taken into quarantine. Okay, so now that's the image that still sticks in the mind that I can't be sitting around, I'll be taken into quarantine, so let me just stay on my own, whether I'm sick or well, I'm going to stay at home. Now look at the cost factor has now been removed from the equation. Nobody's really thinking about the cost anymore because they've been moved, but you're still thinking that it's a punishment to go into quarantine. And you might find yourself at hospital with a cough and somebody's going to ask you one question, and you might answer in a certain way, and you might find yourself in quarantine, and people don't want to get into that. Into that
and then just apart from you going into quarantine, the other issue that is now coming up is, especially for people in informal settlements or informal employment, if I go into isolation or quarantine, who's going to feed my family?
What happens? The impact of that. Let's go to the phone line. Somebody's calling in. Nyawera.
Hi.
How are you?
Good morning.
I am good. Good morning, Dune. Good morning, Korir. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Nyawera.
And good morning to CT if he's listening.
He
is.
We miss his husky voice and words of wisdom. But on the whole aspect of going to hospital, frankly, I wouldn't go because of the cases and the cases I've had of quarantine facilities and how people are being treated there, and the fact that first of all, wherever you're going, facilities are not like at 100. And then there's the element of I might go there for a period of time, then it will be extended. And if, say, I go to a private hospital and the treatment is good, at the end of the day, should they diagnose me with COVID, then I'm the one to incur the cost of that treatment for whatever period they will decide to put me there. And if COVID is one of those things where if you isolate and you take care of yourself and you are not showing extreme, what are they called, symptoms, then I'd rather stay at home and take my vitamins and hydrate and keep warm and take measures that I will take to curb a flu than go to hospital and incur all those costs. And there's also the element of not trusting the health system enough. Like I feel like they might just put you in, they might diagnose you with COVID even if you don't have it. And there's so many things in play that you think about it and you're like, you know what, let me just stay home. Not unless a condition is very serious, like it's something terminal or it's something that is causing excruciating pain to a point where I cannot function normally, then I will take myself to a hospital. Plus, when the whole quarantine and the health measures are being put out there, one of the things people are told was avoid hospitals, which is a narrative that was going around. We were being told avoid hospitals because you get like you're at a higher chance of contracting COVID or any other condition if you go to hospital. And if you have another condition, like if you have say a pre-existing condition, then exposing yourself to COVID then makes you more susceptible to an extreme case. So given all those factors, let me stay home and eat my oranges and stay healthy. Unless I am in like serious pain or it's a very serious condition, then a better part of me will prefer just staying home and calling my doctor and trying to figure out how I can do this from home.
Interesting perspectives. Thank you very much, Nyawera. We'll be speaking with Dr. Patrick Amoth, the Acting Director General of Health. So just keep it right here. You'll hear him respond to those concerns.
Okay.
17 minutes after 8. Let's take a look at weather.
All right. Still partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. Clear skies in other parts, though. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 14 when the rains come in the afternoon. In Nyeri, it's cloudy at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 with the rains in the afternoon. Nakuru at 16 degrees is partly cloudy. It's going to be a wet afternoon here as well, with highs of 24 and lows of 14. Eldoret is mostly sunny at 16 degrees. Showers expected in the afternoon, then with highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's partly cloudy in Kisumu at 20 degrees. We will see highs of 28 today, with showers expected in the later part of the afternoon. Mombasa is mostly cloudy at 26 degrees. Showers expected soon. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 24. Taking a look then into Malindi, where the light rain showers have already begun at 24 degrees. Highs of 28 and lows of 23 throughout the day. And in Kampala at 21 degrees, it's partly cloudy. Rain showers expected, as we said, later. In Dar es Salaam this morning, it's partly sunny conditions today, and this will carry on through the day then with highs of 29 and lows of 22. And in Lagos today, mostly cloudy conditions at 27 degrees. Thunderstorms are still coming down, and it's likely to be that way through most of the day. Johannesburg this morning is clear skies and mostly sunny conditions at 7 degrees. We'll see highs of 19 and lows of 6.
We're standing by to get in touch with Dr. Patrick Hey,
Spice up your life.
now. Maybe somebody has called. Maybe the boss is on the line. Are you hearing what they're saying at Spice? What are you going to answer? So now, Nyeri has actually come up with some interesting perspective. Number one, there was that whole talk of avoid hospitals.
Yeah.
Number two, there's a whole talk of if you have pre-existing conditions, then you are highly at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So now here you are, you have pre-existing condition. And the best thing for you to do is to completely isolate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Avoid interactions with people. Going to hospital means that you're increasing interaction with people, especially if you think about going to hospital means using public transport.
Mm-hmm.
Then that means that you're also increasing your interaction with people. So people would like, okay, let me just see if I can hold on for a while longer before I go for my next appointment. Probably that's also something. Then also, I was thinking that the whole world now is only talking about one disease,
Yes.
Yeah.
COVID. Every other disease has been pushed to the
Backseat,
periphery.
yeah.
Now it's only COVID. So if you have any other condition, you're thinking, well, hospitals are busy. No, doctors are even wearing PPEs. They're all focusing on COVID. So let me not go and bother them with my toe that's paining, whatever. Right? Let me avoid going to hospital. That could also be something that's affecting people's psyche.
Which is not the case actually, because healthcare workers are trained, doctors, nurses, everyone is trained for this kind of scenario. You're trained to be ready to handle the worst. You're trained to be able to multitask. I mean, if let's say you're in an accident and emergency department, anything can happen. Anyone can come in with anything at any one point in time. You may be going in the first hour, maybe you're seeing somebody with the flu. The next time, there's a mass accident.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you're even running in and out of theater. So you're trained to be able to handle all of these things at the same time.
So let's speak to our guest now. He's on the line. Dr. Patrick Amoth is the Acting Director General of Health. Dr. Amoth, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Thank you very much for tuning in and joining us this morning. This is a Situation Room. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
In the room, we have Dr. Mercy Korir Nduoko, and I am Eric Latif.
Good morning, Daktari.
Good morning, Daktari.
Morning to you.
Now, Daktari, we have been discussing this issue since yesterday. One is the issue of reduced number of hospital visits. And we even see that you spoke about it yesterday, and you said that the ministry has also noticed that there's a reduced number of visits to the hospitals, and you're encouraging people to go to hospital. Why, first of all? Have you been able to establish why are people not going to hospital now that, as they were doing before?
Thank you, Eric. I think the reason people are not going to hospitals is just because of fear and stigma caused by COVID-19. But we have continuously appealed to our people to go to hospital because we have trained all the healthcare workers. We have provided the necessary gear to be able to offer service. And from the word go, we actually directed the counties to have a COVID-specific hospital so that other facilities are released to continue offering normal services. So we'll still continue to appeal to the public to visit the facilities, especially those with chronic existing conditions and those who require emergency treatment for any reason or the other. The facilities are safe, the healthcare workers are well trained, they have the right gear, and they receive quality service when they visit the public health facilities. Thank you.
Going back to COVID, Dr. Moth now, and looking at how things have been run up until this point, is there satisfaction that the measures that have been put in place are dealing with what we see on a regular basis? Are you satisfied with how things are going?
We are pretty confident of how things are going. Our health systems are able to cope despite the numbers increasing. We have not been overrun. Of course, we regret the mortalities. As the cases increase, also, of course, most of our patients still are asymptomatic or have a mild form of the illness. And the reason we have many people in the facilities is just because you have to keep people for 14 days before you start repeating the test to see that you have cleared the virus out of your system, and therefore you are safe to your family and the rest of the public.
Coming back to the issue of people not going to hospital, and you've said one of them could be that fear. And then also actually you've just made us aware now that even counties have been asked to create specific COVID hospitals, and then the rest of the hospitals are clearly not COVID. But this communication is not happening. Why is it not happening on the ground?
Latif, health is a devolved function. The Ministry of Health and the National Health can only give guidelines, but I personally cannot go to say to Muranga County and tell them that this is your COVID hospital. We believe all the counties have competent county health management teams, and based on the guidelines and protocols that we have provided, they should be able to execute that mandate without any problem.
But during this war, Daktari, you are among the generals in the National Emergency Response Committee, and one of your members is Governor Kuti.
Yes.
And I would assume that Governor Kuti's position in the committee is so that he can also translate some of the information that you come up with and take it to the counties, and also follow up using the county COG mechanisms to ensure that this is happening on the ground. Because if it doesn't happen, then there's no point of you guys sitting in the war room at the National Emergency Response Committee and discussing these things.
I want to affirm to you, Eric, that quite a number of counties have established COVID-specific hospitals and released the other facilities to continue offering normal service. And counties have also established county emergency response committees, chaired by the governor and the county commissioner, and teams drawn from all the sectors. And I believe this is something we can be able to discuss on a case-by-case basis in case a particular county has any headwinds. Then we can be able to unlock together as a health sector.
Looking back,
but this is not a unique situation, Eric. Remember the Ebola outbreak of 2014?
Yeah.
I continue to tell people that more people died of non-Ebola reasons than Ebola itself in West Africa. People died of malaria. Pregnant mothers died at home because of the presentation. Sometimes they present like bleeding. People would think they have Ebola.
Yeah.
People died of pneumonia. So in terms of pandemic, it is just normal human behavior. It is either fear or flight. And if it is fear, then it is us continuously to inform the public a correct health-seeking behavior. And here you have also a bigger role in partnership with other players to be able to inform people on the correct decisions to be made.
Looking back, Daktari, to the beginning of the active COVID response in the country, there was the memo that you sent out to facilities to cancel or postpone elective cases and clinics and such things, which happened in many of the facilities. But now, when hospitals are trying to get back into work, that memo is still standing. And so people are not able to, even get NHIF to approve some of the elective cases because they are pointing back and saying, but the Ministry of Health said A, B, C, and D. And this is directly contributing to people not going into the health facilities. So is there a plan to inform that there is a change of thinking or a change of strategy so that we start seeing more numbers of people who need healthcare services going back into the facilities?
Thank you. Specifically, the memo that we sent to the counties was just suspending elective surgical procedures. Did not suspend clinics specifically. But that notwithstanding, we are reviewing that position in view of how our curve is behaving, and our modeling team is at it. We have brought up a document that we are poring over, and in the next few days we shall be able to take a position. Initially, we had thought that we could simply lift the ban and insist that anybody who comes for any elective procedure have a COVID test. But that will also have its own challenges, because what would happen if we put a COVID test as a prerequisite for admission?
Yeah.
And a particular facility does not have the capacity to test for COVID. That would deny that particular person the right to treatment, which is enshrined in our Constitution.
Yeah.
So it's this is a novel thing with new challenges that we have not prepared for, nobody has prepared for. We'll make decisions, we'll claw back on those decisions, we'll make mistakes along the way, and we will learn and perfect going forward.
Doctor, I've asked you this before, and let me ask again. What measures have you put in place as a Ministry of Health to make sure that people continue accessing healthcare services past curfew hours? People who need to access the Nairobi metropolitan area because of some healthcare services like chemotherapy, radiotherapy. What measures are there to make it easy for people to be able to, come and get services? Because some of the things like cancer will not wait for COVID to end or to slow down.
So especially those who are coming from outside Nairobi.
Yeah.
The county health management teams through the county directors have the powers to issue certificates, because the equivalent of the director general county level for anybody to be able to access treatment. You could come from Marsabit, come for chemotherapy in Nairobi or radiotherapy in Nairobi, or whatever treatment they require. We have delegated that function to the counties. We have also developed a certificate that this week that we need to roll down, especially to the pregnant mothers. But we are working closely with the multi-agency team so that the curfew enforcers become our partners. But I don't think there should be any reason why Kenyan should fear to approach a police person or a police vehicle for assistance. In fact, the police should be able to facilitate transfer of a patient in the middle of the night for emergency care.
Dr. Moth, unfortunately, the reality is very different from that, in that it's not about approaching any of the security agencies for help, but by virtue of the fact that you see them on the road or you are aware that they are there, individuals are likely not to approach. So, how then, and that's why we're asking at this point, in terms of the communication between yourselves and the security in terms of working in tandem together, can it be taken further? Because people right now are afraid. We had a story of a woman who was in labor but would rather sit at home the whole night and then wait until morning then when she could be transported to a hospital to be able to give birth, because she was afraid to even approach security officials at a roadblock.
I note that challenge. The Inspector General sits with us in the National Emergency Response Committee. we'll table that agenda for further discussion on direction.
Talking about these people who need to cross over counties to go and seek medical services, maybe people who have terminal illnesses, do you have a database of these people? And is there a better way of communicating with them through their healthcare providers or health facilities, as opposed to telling them to look for the county director of health so that you can get this letter, which letter you'll use to cross the boundary or to access services? I think that's just making the process just too tedious for somebody who is already feeling vulnerable and weak.
Yes, we know it is 2 years, but that was put in place because of the fact that when you delegate this to the actual healthcare providers, we have had cases where people actually falsify documents to be able to break the restriction, not for health-related purposes. But we are open to review of this proposal if there is a particular challenge. And of course, the Office of the Director General is open and is willing. I've personally provided direction, I've provided letters, even on a phone call of particular people in different parts of the country to be able to seek services.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Ari, looking at what the Anglican Archbishop said on Sunday, this is Jackson Olesapit, the faith-based organizations are struggling because of the declining number of patients going in there. And anyway, he was pleading for government bailout. But it's not just the faith-based organizations. We're also seeing the private institutions instituting salary pay cuts. Some are laying off employees. Is this a matter of concern to yourself as the DG and the Ministry of Health as a whole, that your other healthcare providers are struggling, yet during this pandemic they should be the ones who are thriving?
The reason they are struggling is what we had alluded to earlier, is because of fear and stigma. But going forward, we have the Economic Committee under the National Emergency Response Committee that looks at the mitigation measures to be able to support all sectors of the economy despite the challenge of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then, let's talk about the number of deaths. You raised concern the other day that you are noticing a number of deaths being reported from home. People are not seeking healthcare services, they're dying from home. But also when we report deaths nowadays, we only talk as if COVID is the only thing that's killing people. Is it possible for the ministry, maybe on a daily basis, to be saying the overall number of dead in the country is this, and those that have died of COVID-related illnesses are this?
It is possible, but not on a daily basis, because this data is collected through a system called the District Health Information System.
Mm-hmm.
Counties report their data by the 15th after the end of every month.
Yep.
And we collect this data and report on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
It will be very difficult for us to be able to report on a daily basis, knowing that some facilities may not even have internet connectivity, so reporting, and you need to report on verified figures from the facilities.
True.
At the end of the quarter, we give the counties 1 week to be able to polish their data and own it. Then after that, we stop them accessing the servers so that nobody interferes with the data. Then we can be able to generate. So on a quarterly basis, this is information that we have.
So between the time that we announced we got the first case of COVID, March 15th, 13th of March, and now, do we know the number of deaths totally in the country? Or do we need to wait until the end of the quarter?
No, the quarter has ended. The quarter ended. That quarter was January, February, March, so we have that we can be able to share. But of note, what I picked up from that report that I can remember often, because I'm not in the office now, is the increased stillbirth rates, which almost doubled during that period. Yeah, and that is a sign that either mothers were reporting to the facility very late, or there was a problem with health service delivery when they reported to the facility. And I think this is in our pressure when we received that report.
So after getting that data, Dr. Ari, what what measures did you take as a Ministry of Health? Because that is quite concerning that we are getting almost a double increase in stillbirths. What measures have been there to just increase the public confidence in seeking healthcare in hospitals so that that number does not happen again?
We have developed guidelines and protocols on reproductive, maternal, and child health care during this COVID pandemic. And we have trained the healthcare workers. Of course, we continue to advocate for mothers to come to deliver in facilities. We have also trained the healthcare workers to inspire their confidence that despite the COVID pandemic, services can be delivered the way they were. In fact, I want to point out to you that we delivered the first COVID-positive pregnant woman via cesarean section about 8 or so days ago at another university teaching referral hospital. Both mother and baby are doing fantastic. Baby is negative so far. Mother's first test is negative, and we look forward to her and her newborn baby going home joyfully.
You talked about advocacy, and how can we see this being played out across board, across the country? Can we see tangible results of this advocacy of which you speak of?
What advocacy, of course, is a multiplicity of players. Literally all of us, starting from me at my personal level, my community, the civil society organizations, the religious leaders, the politicians. And we have to do this as a whole society approach, so that we can be able to inspire our people that the health services that they receive when they go to the vaccine, quality services, their protection from COVID-19 is assured. But we can only be able to tell the effects of that probably when we look at the next quarter's results in terms of number of deliveries, in terms of stillbirth rates, in terms of maternal death, and other indicators that we monitor continuously.
Now, final question, Dr. We know you have another meeting that already you're late for. Is on the testing. On April 22nd, the Cabinet Secretary said that, by end of June, we should have done 250,000 tests. Now we are at a paltry 49,405 tests so far, according to the data as at yesterday. Looking at the time that is there, what are we doing in order to meet that testing? And two, will we continue with targeted testing, or will we now start seeing random testing of people across the country?
Our strategy is targeted testing based on hotspots where I receive cases from, based on profile and the risk profile, like the healthcare workers, the truck drivers. I can assure you that in country now we have more than 25,000 test kits. And you saw yesterday in ECB, we started again the targeted testing. The challenge that we have faced as a government, and I have to admit, is the supply chain challenge of getting that test. That we even plan, and when we plan, the test kits don't arrive in the country at the planned time, and therefore we have to interrupt our testing process midway. So going forward, we have tried to prioritize the procurement of test kits. But these test kits are required by each and every country in the world.
Yeah.
So those countries which have muscle, of course, will take precedence over the weaker ones like us. Because there are countries who would say that we require 5 million tests and we are going to pay upfront. So even if your order was in the pipeline, that order will go to a more powerful country.
Yeah.
And when we had the WHA, the World Health Assembly on Monday and Tuesday, this was the message by the Cabinet Secretary that this is a global pandemic. Let us balance things out. Let's not put profit first before the health of the public, so that we have a shared responsibility as a global community.
Yeah.
That the weak countries receive their due share as much as the powerful have their way.
True.
But going forward, we are in discussions with other people, including ILRI, International Livestock Research Institute, EMRI, Institute of Primate Research, The only solution to this problem going forward is local manufacture of our primers and probes. And we have done it before. We have done it before for HIV. We have done it for hepatitis B. If we do it jointly through a multi-sectoral approach, it would be possible for us to unlock it. And you can see like a country like South Africa, which is able to manufacture its primers and probes. They are able to do more than 5,000 tests in a day because those things are available in country. Now Kenya has to wait for a flight from where, and then somebody more powerful puts a bigger check, and then we are taken to the back of the queue. It is so frustrating. Yeah, but behind every dark cloud is a silver lining. We never knew at any given point that we would manufacture PPEs locally.
Yep.
And now we are doing that very well. Soon we venture into the export market. Even the job losses that have been recorded because of COVID, our friend in at River EPZ and Nakuru Bed Investment is now able to get more people to work.
It's a good thing. Like you said, there's always a silver lining. Dr. Patrick Amoth, the Acting Director General of Health, we thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you, Eric.
And we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ari.
Thank you. Good day.
Say hello to everybody else at the National Emergency Response Committee. Tell them we support you.
Thank you so much for your support.
Asante sana.
We can only do this together.
Yes, we shall. And our job is to remind you where we feel that you're forgetting.
I stand.
Thank you.
It's 8:45. This is a situation of Kenya's biggest conversation. Dr. Patrick Amoth, the Acting Director General of Health, has just spoken to us. Let's continue with this conversation. 0719-012-600. Also, you can post your comments and questions on Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Let's take a look at traffic.
Okay, today has been a very good day in terms of traffic. We only have an issue around Utawala, and there's a hold-up in and outbound on the Eastern Bypass today for some reason. And thus, this is now spilling over to Thika Road and on this side, Mombasa Road. Apart from that, we don't have any traffic hold-ups today right around the city and, interestingly, around the country. So it's a good day to be out. It's Thursday, right? Yes, it is. It's a good day to be out. Spice FM on Twitter. That's how you can reach us. Let us know what you see.
I call it 9. This is now the phone number. 0719-012-600. We are talking about Kenyans' health-seeking behavior. We are not going to hospital. Dr. Amoth is also attributing this to the fear factor. It's COVID season, so people are just fearing to go to hospital. But what is it that we should do to address this? I mean, we cannot just say, oh yes, there's COVID, so let's not go to hospital. And yet, you need to go seek healthcare.
If there's anything that he said that confirms that we have a problem, it's the rate of stillbirth that he said. That in Q1, he notices that the rate had doubled, had increased.
But explain that. This is January, February, March. So
yes.
this is BC.
No, March,
March is just 15 days.
15 days is a long time, considering that at least 1 million kids, there are at least 1 million births in a year. If you are to divide that by a quarter, then that's 250,000 in quarter one, in 3 months. So if you are to break that down further, then it means that 250 to 80,000. So in March, we expected 80,000 live deliveries. But then out of this, our neonatal mortality rate is, I think, usually about 52 in 100,000, thereabout. So if you're to do that math and see if 52 in 100,000 is what you would think would have died because you would have done everything else and still lost these babies. Out of the 80,000 that you expected in March, it means it's not 52, it is 100. So it means there are 50 more children that you should have saved that you didn't save. It means there are 50 more mothers who would have gone home with their children and they didn't.
It's a big
and
concern.
That is already it is usually 50 more.
It's a big and I think the biggest concern here is we can't even explain why.
And for me, that is alarming, it's disturbing, it's everything wrong. And if we needed evidence of why some of the measures of COVID are being harmful, this is an evidence. And it's from the acting director general himself. So either women are not going to hospital when they need to, or when they go to hospital, they're not getting attended.
They're not getting that kind of attention. Esther is calling in from Mombasa. Good morning, Esther.
Habari yenyu mzuri. How are you?
We are well.
Fine, Esther. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you. Mombasa, we are going back to lead. We are going to go to hospital. Anyway,
what is
I
making
like the
people not go to
discussion.
hospital?
Yes, and that's a thing. We will make them go to hospital, or ourselves we will go to hospital. But I think the most critical thing is that there's fear. There's fear. There's a lot of fear, and not necessarily from... the first fear we used to get was from the updates, daily updates. Watu wanaona,
the numbers are rising.
Numbers inakuwa, they are rising, and they are actually coming. And before, people used to say, ziko kule. But now, when they spread one by one, even one or two people, they are coming nearer to us.
Yeah.
And of course, there was a lot of commotion, which I think, in the first place, who are going to work. We were really trying to deal with an emergency. That's what I'm saying. We were trying to deal with an emergency of who is critical to go to hospital, who is critical to go to work. There was all these adjustments at organizational level, people's levels, kwa manyumba, everything, sanitize, do everything. So all that thing came up. But where we are right now, I'm feeling like there's stigmatization coming in. And especially with what we have been seeing, most of the time what you see and what you hear actually affects you. Because I'm trying to think if there was a structured way of handling emergency response, which we always say in the radio, like if there's a way of handling it when we have a pandemic, this is the person to communicate, this is the person to give the final detail, like the way the minister has been doing and all his team. But Kenyans ni wajuaji. They will browse and go to social media and write and forward. These two forward. That is what is causing the stress.
Forwarded as received.
Because, yes, everyone says, we are hearing in Tanzania, Magufuli is saying this. So, COVID haijafika, hii ni uongo. So, those indirect stories become realities. Okay. And let me tell you, they will affect us completely because if the guy who has just come from the interview, the director, if when they stand there, they talk from a point of knowledge. But Kenyans, we want to even know more than him. So we will say what he's saying is not the truth. And we'll seek the truth from, what is happening in Italy. That is the truth. What is happening in, like today, if you read, you will still find more updates from Trump, you will find more updates from whichever country. And that is their way of doing things. Yeah. So it means we are not able to trust fully what our government is telling us to do as people.
Thank you, Esther.
So I think, we should try harder. And I had a new idea of what you were talking before. In short, wear PPEs. This is on corruption. Clean your hands. So that means know what to do, especially for the corrupt people. Wear PPEs, stay away from and blow. Okay. Keep distance, keep off corruption.
Completely.
Aye. And have Asante, no bite. And then those who are corrupt, quarantine them. Bye.
Asante. Trevor in Kisumu, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
We're
good
well.
Morning, Trevor.
I had I think it's a question. Kenneth National Hospital, you say it has a bed capacity of 2,000.
Yep.
And currently it's admitting 1,200 people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, if we're using the term in physics, STT, is the hospital considered successful if all the beds are occupied, or should it at least operate at a certain bed occupancy so that at least other emergency cases are catered for? Because at the moment, we see a situation whereby we can actually work on a system so that the Kenyatta Hospital remains what it's supposed to be, a referral hospital. As opposed to right now, you're saying, or people are saying, it is not full.
It's empty.
So everybody thinks, hey, let us actually go and fill it the way we used to fill it. And, the level 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are left empty.
True. That's a good issue you raised.
I hear you, Trevor. The thing here is that we know there's a demand for it. Definitely. There's a demand for it because in 2 months' time, we have not completely eliminated the things that required us to have the hospitals full. So we are coming from a point of we know there's a demand, so why or where are people? So that's the question. It would be good to keep it at that level.
Optimally,
at Kenyatta.
If you were the CEO, how many beds would you like to see empty? To say that these ones are waiting for in case of an emergency, because we have emergencies all the time. Just so that we are able to cater for emergency and we are treating and releasing people, let's have this capacity able to capture an emergency at any point.
It's not about the beds being occupied, but because for our hospital now, it's about your turnaround time and your outcomes. If you're able to come to a hospital, let's say, let me give an example of the fractures from the accident, trauma, and those kind of things, trauma that need admission. If I'm able, as a CEO in a facility, to provide you with surgery that fixes your bones, as opposed to, and which will take you like two days, you come in, the next day your bone has been fixed, you go home, as opposed to keeping you in hospital for 6 months or 6 weeks plus, then I would be more successful because I have fixed your fracture within a short period of time, you've gone home. What this means to the hospital is my patient outcomes will be better, because that's what a hospital should be judged on. What are your patient outcomes? Are people walking out alive, or are they going through, where I used to work, used to call it Ward 11, are they going through the morgue? So what is your outcomes? And two, for the patient or for the client, if I'm able to go in and go out, it means I'm able to be a productive member of society. So I'm able to do more. If you look at, let's say, surgeries, laparoscopic surgeries, if I'm able to do a surgery without opening you up and do minimally invasive, and therefore it means you have fewer days in hospital and you can go home and you're up and about in no time, as opposed to opening you up, then you have to take time and the risk involved are high, then I'm better off spending as little time with you as possible in the hospital. So it's not about filling the beds, but those who have filled those beds, how long are they staying in hospital? And even if they stay for a short time or for a long period of time, because there are some things which you need more time, are they going home better than they came in?
They came into hospital.
Justus in Kilifi, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
We're
Fine,
fine,
thank you.
It's a rain morning, but we are okay.
What do you mean it's a rain morning, as opposed to?
It's a rainy
morning.
It's a rainy morning, yes. Now, just a couple of things. I think what we need to address, the Kenyans' behaviors in seeking health services first. They are terrible, especially for men. Eric, you and I, we are terrible in seeking health services.
I am taken to hospital.
You are taken to hospital, you are pushed to hospital. So it's a common thing, and I think that as we began the messaging about COVID and hospitals, we should have been conscious of that, so that we do not create another reason why Kenyans may not want to go to hospital. That is one. The second factor is actually geography. Places like Mombasa, the bulk of the patients come from Kilifi, Kwale, Taveta, and other places, the outskirts. The same thing I suspect for much of the patients, especially long-term patients in Nairobi. They could be coming from Machakos, those outer surrounding areas. You take the same example to places like Kisii, you'll find that the main hospitals, the key health hubs, actually get patients from far. Now, when you throw in the lockdown, it brought in some specific complications on how patients, especially on short notice, could access these places. I can give you a few testimonies of people who have been unable to rapidly access, let's say, Aga Khan Hospital in Mombasa, because the processes of traveling, having to go and arrange, get some documentation, if you cannot get an ambulance, especially if you're using public transport, are quite a little bit complicated. And I suspect this is what, as you've been raising since morning, could have also been anticipated and addressed. And the last thing has to do with the health system behavior in the context of COVID. Everybody went blanket COVID. We sort of almost made the other services secondary. And even when people went to the hospital, it's like the priorities. Have you seen, is there a symptom? Is there, so it also messaged, it kind of sent a double-edged message to the healthcare workers to look out for COVID, to the public to avoid hospitals because COVID is the priority and you are likely to get infected there. So I think it could be time to take a step back and look at, again, we keep repeating the messaging. There's no miracle except messaging to change the behavior and actually reorient the perspectives.
True. This is the bottom line.
To how people, that's the bottom line. And we lost that messaging business. And it's interesting that you guys are going back to the earlier debate we used to have with you. I mean, the discussions you had here, that the messaging was not up to par.
Exactly.
Missing out. We have consistently repeated this. And it went to what Mercy was calling the militarizing, criminalizing. You confuse public health with crime management. That messes things up.
Just as, thank you very much. Good points. Have a good day. Have a good rainy morning in Kilifi.
We welcome it here.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Cheers.
You too. Coming to the top of the hour, let me remind you today's proverb. Maize bears fruits once and dies because it's not rooted into the ground. Maize bears fruit once and dies because it's not rooted into the ground. In the next hour, we'll be looking at our economic status. We have been blessed. We are receiving money left, right, and center from anybody who can give us and lend us. But how are we managing that? We'll be talking to Mohammed Uliye from Saudi Arabia. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Parts of Kiambu Road are a bit of a mess. Some people are experiencing traffic further down, others are not. Earlier it was, now it isn't. Okay, you just know how it is. But it's just one of the indicators. So we have Kiambu Road that has joined that. Utawala is crazy right around now. This is the Eastern Bypass. But apart from that, today, traffic, I think we will have to give a round of applause here today because it has behaved very well. I think everybody is getting to where they're going really quickly and not having an issue. I've got to ask you to be careful. I've also got to ask you to put on your masks if you are in public transport. Absolutely necessary for those two things. Right, so Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. But today, as concerns traffic, I don't think people are having too much of a headache.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain
2 minutes
times.
of time.
Ndu
This is also Kenya's
Oko,
biggest
Nigerian by
conversation
birth,
broadcasting
Kenyan by
from Nairobi
choice,
to the world.
communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric
Facebook,
Latin,
YouTube, and
agent
Twitter.
provocateur,
Now,
the
you know what
man in
Dr.
the chair,
Patrick,
seasoned journalist,
acting Director
news
General
hound,
of
a
Health
man
said
who believes
that
in
COVID
punching up,
has
not
also
down.
brought a silver lining.
This is the Situation Room,
Silver lining
the
to the
only way
government.
to start your day.
Because since COVID, the National Treasury has received 191 billion shillings. New money coming in. Kenya has received a record 191 billion from the World Bank and the IMF in under 2 months, as the Washington-based institutions come to the rescue of an economy that is ailing after a fatal attack by COVID. Yesterday, the World Bank pushed its tally of loans advanced to Kenya during this period to 112 billion shillings after its board approved a 106 billion shilling, the largest under two-phase development policy finance operations. In the first phase, the World Bank had given us 75B, with the money being used for budgetary support, including the Big Four agenda. So here's a timeline of how things have happened, okay? 13th of March, it was a Friday, Kenya announces the first case of COVID-19. 16th of March, World Bank approves 1 billion shillings for Kenya. On the 2nd of April, World Bank approves 5 billion shillings for Kenya. On the 15th of April, the G20 countries agreed to extend repayment of debt to developing countries by 7 months. Kenya stands to save 71 billion shillings. On the 11th of May, IMF moves Kenya's risk of debt distress from moderate to high, cites vulnerabilities as a result of COVID-19. 14th of May, Moody's, a global rating agency, downgrades Kenya's outlook to negative, citing high debt vulnerabilities. But on the 19th of May, the World Bank approves 106 billion shillings for budgetary support. So we are getting money, but at the same time they're saying, but you guys are risky. We are downgrading you. You guys are risky. So the issue here is, how do we manage? Now, this is the money that's coming in. How do we manage what we have? How do we manage to ensure that, first, it doesn't even just sink our economy further? How do we manage this to ensure that it's not very expensive? Remember, we've been talking about Kenya having very expensive debt, commercial debt, very expensive. Maybe now going back to these Bretton Woods institutions and such other lenders, we're actually now getting cheaper loan. This is going to help us.
I threw in another question there, and how do we actually make sure that all this money that is coming in, with COVID having been the reasoning behind it, how do we then make sure that it actually goes towards that? Because it's a question that must be asked.
It doesn't end up in those tax havens.
It doesn't end up, number one, in those tax havens or in the pockets of people who it shouldn't be, or for issues or matters that are not important when it comes to the fight against COVID. And if it is for that which the government has gotten this money, that it should go to that. And it is terrible that we have to ask the question, but historical experience begs that we do. It has begged that we do ask the question and at least make that hope alive, that all this money, because we're talking about a lot of money here, 100 and what billion money that's going to come in, or that has already come in and has started to make its way in.
191 B.
It's sad that we have to ask and say, oh my gosh, I hope this money will actually go towards that which it has been asked for. But it must be asked. Historical experience only begs that you ask and say, okay, guys, I hope this money is actually going towards the fight against COVID. Because it would be very, very, very sad, debilitating almost, to see that all that money comes into this country and then it doesn't go towards the fight. And that we still
doesn't even end up in any part of our
Kenya
economy.
Has to pay. It doesn't even end up in the economy. It goes out, and then Kenya still has to pay, and it goes roundabout and comes back to the taxpayer, who is going to have to suffer to make that payment.
The last time we spoke to this gentleman, he was telling us, you know what, the government is broke. The government has no money. Forget about all these things. This government is broke. No, Mohammed Elie is one of Kenya's greatest exports. He's in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He's the senior advisor to the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, the team. How are you guys?
Good morning,
very well,
Mohammed.
thank you, Mohammed. Good morning.
So we have received money now. We can no longer call us broke, okay? Let's start from there. We are doing better.
Eric, first of all, thank you very much. I could hear the conversation in the background and the fact that we are very excited about having received 175 billion, which is $1 billion from the World Bank and $750 million from the IMF. Well, I have to tell you the bad news. The bad news is that this is money that was already budgeted. You see, in 2019-2020 budget, which is to a financial year that ends in 1 month's time, we planned to raise $200 billion or $2 billion from commercial debt. Okay? And of course, commercial debt means you either go and borrow from banks or you go and borrow from from private investors through Eurobond. I think they were going to do a Eurobond. It was very difficult to sell this idea to Kenyans. It was very difficult to market it. So in the process, what happened is then COVID-19 came. So we got cheap debt, cheaper than commercial debt, from the World Bank and IMF, 175 billion. We were supposed to basically raise 200 billion. So this is basically just financing operations and things that were already in the budget. So this is not money for COVID-19. We are in fact still short of 25 billion, which they are now going to raise from the domestic market. So they decided 200 billion, 175 came from the World Bank and IMF, and the other 25 billion would come from the from the domestic debt market. So it's nothing new, nothing for COVID-19.
Nothing major.
People have to make sure that they understand that.
So you're also saying that this is money that is coming to finance a budget that's ending in a month's time. And then we have a new budget which will have new targets, and we'll have to go and borrow more.
Of course. The new budget deficit is 7.8%. We've always been doing 7 to 8% deficit, which is unsustainable, which we have said is the problem that is, the cause of all the problems that we have. Yes, of course, we have to raise, that amount of money again. But this money that we have received, it's already consumed. It's done. I mean, it's gone to projects that are already existing and for which, they're funding. So I think that has to be made clear to Kenyans because people are excited that we've gotten 175 million. That's not 175 billion new money.
I understand. I mean, trying to close the so there's a gap in fiscal financing. So this is what this money essentially has been brought in to plug, right, Mohammed? Now, this takes care of issues a backlog of issues supposedly, and then we're a month to the budget, whereby already it's looking quite ambitious. I think we're at 2.7 trillion, which is what is being touted now, and it's probably going to be the numbers that we will see next month. Having to have borrowed already to fill up for what we had in the last year, and then going towards one where it's clear that they're not sure exactly how it is going to be financed. Are we not already in a deeper problem even as we go towards the next year, Mohammed?
Yes, of course we are in a deeper problem. You see, you have to understand that you say 2.7 trillion is our expenditure, and can you imagine if I tell you that almost $1 trillion of that is going to pay for debt servicing? So imagine in your own household, for every 3 shillings, you're spending 1 shilling to basically service your debt. That is the problem we have now. We've gone into a problem whereby debt numbers and borrowing is no longer an issue. What is an issue is when it comes to debt, the most important number you should be looking at, and I said this the last time I was on this show, is servicing the debt. You can be perpetually in debt. There is no problem. Countries do that. The problem is how much of your resources are you spending to service that debt? And that is the number you should be looking at. We are now hitting 1 trillion shillings. And that means if we collect like we collected, we are going to collect this year probably around 1.5 trillion if we're lucky. Then that means out of that, 1 trillion is going straight away to go and service debt. And the other 500 billion we are going to have to use it for everything else. That is the big problem that we have.
And it brings in that word even for all of us who don't even understand budgeting. Unsustainable.
It is unsustainable, and that is why the IMF have now basically said our debt risk moves from moderate to high risk. And high risk means basically, you're likely to default if you do nothing about it.
Why do the institutions... Mohammed, why do the institutions, even if they flag you as high risk, flag a country as high risk, but then still continue to dole out these funds? Is there a rationale behind this?
The rationale behind it is sometimes you get support, not for any other reason, but simply because it's a high-risk country and you have to be supported. Unless you're supported, then the situation becomes worse. So we're not getting, look at the financing that we got from the World Bank. That type of financing is basically the program from which we are borrowing is a program that is meant not for new investments or any investments, but for making sure that you create an environment that then allows you to be able to continue to pay your debts. So, ni kama kusema, I'm going to the bank and I'm telling the bank, unless you give me more money, I will not be able to pay your money. So you have to look at what we are funding now and what we are borrowing for. The World Bank has given us, for a specific, from a specific program. And that program is meant for those kind of things, to create an environment, to fight poverty, to make sure that everything else that the government is not able to do because of the fact that it's in debt in the first place continues to be done. So that is now where we are.
We are like that relative who's drunk and completely disorderly, but you must continue supporting them.
Exactly.
What's the way out for us, Mohammed?
Well, I think, you see, the problem I always say, Eric, is if you appreciate the fact that you have a problem, then you can come up with solutions. I think the problem we have in this country is that there are people who make decisions right at the top and who have not yet appreciated the fact that we have a serious problem. Now, if you look at some of this, money that we've borrowed, I think we have about $28 billion of borrowing, which is commitments, but we have not utilized those commitments. So you have 28 billion. We've probably utilized about 10 billion of that. That means we have about 18 billion, which we've borrowed, which are counted in our debt numbers, these numbers we're talking about, but you've not used. So some of those things, some of those projects are for, let's say, dual carriage, Galana, Kulalu, So you have to sit down and then look at each project and say, I have borrowed this money. It is already in the budget. So why should I go and borrow 10 billion more when I can, and you're allowed, when you do this kind of contracts, you're allowed actually to reroute, some of this money to other projects. So at some stage, the government then has to say, why should I do a dual carriage? I've got the money. I'm allowed to change it to something that is more beneficial to me and which is a priority for me now. That is the kind of, we have reached a point where the only hope we have is to manage the cost of the debt, to try and reduce, to try and say, can I go and now renegotiate some of this, high servicing debts? But borrowing, you have to borrow. The thing is, you have already borrowed. It's in your balance sheet. What you can do is, don't go and create new debt when you can, rearrange what you already have. And that's not what they're doing. They're not planning to do that because, again, the way some of these bureaucrats work is, if new contracts are not signed, if new debts don't come, then there are people who don't actually like that type of...
you haven't performed. Basically, they feel like you have it. So when you talk about now managing the debt, being our way out, what does that entail? And what would it take for us to get to a point where you can say, all right, so yeah, we're borrowing and we've borrowed so much, we owe so much, but we're managing it well?
Well, as I said, I think what you have to look at is you have to, first of all, terminate or tear down the debt finance project. You have to undertake an analysis of all the loan agreements and the independent, expert advice. You have to renegotiate the terms that drive costs upward. You have to implement a new debt policy that seeks to enhance debt transparency. We have a public debt management office that is now managing 6.5 trillion Kenya shillings. Now, if you go and look at that debt office, Eric, imagine there is a bank that is managing 6.3 trillion of loans. That bank would have a lot of, emphasis and experts and people who are looking at those numbers on a daily basis.
Yep.
But our debt office is not, until recently, it had even the capacity. It lacks people. There were people who were seconded from the World Bank, or IMF. Now I think they're trying to rebuild that office, but it's not also independent. There is no transparency. There is no parliament that looks at those numbers. So I think if the management itself is not good, people who should be looking at every dollar. I mean, if you have debt issues yourself, Eric, you look at kila kitu.
Yep.
You try and see where can I save. But that is the first thing we need to look at.
I hear you saying these things, Mohammed, and it seems that a government, who understands these policies across the board, because, you've said it now, there are bureaucrats, the policymakers who understand these things when it comes to financial responsibility for a government. But then I have to ask a really rudimentary question, is that, do they then know what needs to be done?
Yes, they do. I think a lot of the people in those offices are very smart people. They are, they do understand. But the problem is, understanding is one thing, and also the will to do some of these things is another thing. There is always, in the past, I don't know. I think probably things might be changing now at the Treasury, but in the past, it's about rent picking. You sign a new contract. There's something in it for you or someone else.
Yep.
There are projects that that we have to do. We have to start new projects because there's pressure from elsewhere. So I think it's about looking at the interest of the country or the interest versus the interest of those people who are basically in office at that particular time. That is the biggest problem we have in Kenya and also in Africa. I come here, I do my administration, I do what I want to do. The problem for the next 10 years is someone else's problem, and then they go and continue from there. And I think at one stage, though, it's not going to be sustainable. It's impossible for you to spend 1 trillion out of 1.5 trillion that you collect. And remember, when we say now we are spending almost 44 shillings for every 100 shillings that we collect in taxes, only to pay debt. Now, the 100 shilling, because of COVID, because of economic problems, the 100 shilling is no longer 100 shilling. It's now 65 shillings.
Yep.
So you're spending 44 shillings out of 65 to pay debt. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Do we need to overhaul this national treasury? It sounds like all the time, well, it's the entire government, but let's start with this treasury because this is where our money is being managed. And if the management of our finances is not being done to the interest or for the interest of the public, what do we need to do at the National Treasury?
Eric, what we need to do is already in the Constitution. There is a public debt management office. The Constitution says that it has to be independent. As long as the public debt management office is not independent of Treasury, then you cannot do anything. I live in this country. There's also a public debt management office.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely independent. It can question Treasury's expenditures. It can ask Treasury, to go to hell sometimes. So as long as the public debt management office, the Director General directly reports to the minister, my friend, there's no oversight there. Those are the guys who are managing our book. We're talking about 6.5 trillion shillings. A guy who manages 6.5 trillion shillings. That's not small money. I mean, if you look at J.P. Morgan and if you look at these big banks, they employ, millions of people to manage less money than that.
Yep.
Now, what is so different when it comes to government? The other thing we have to look at, of course, is not... is about Parliament also trying to oversight. Where is the role of Parliament? We don't seem to take these things seriously. We say, okay, we leave it to the government. Yes, of course, every government uses budget to try and give to society what they have promised, but they have to be checked.
But does Parliament have the capacity to oversight?
I think they do. Those guys are my classmates. Ichungwa is the head of budget, committee. We were in Lower Kabete together. Moses Kuria is in the budget committee. He was my senior in Lower Kabete. These guys are not fools. These guys are guys we've gone to school with. The question is, are they willing to do this? Is there, if you look at the budget, and I've written about this in the newspapers, it's always where our corruptional problems start.
Yeah.
There's always, budget padding. It starts with the ministries. If they have to budget for 100, they'll budget for 200.
Yeah.
Okay? So whatever is eaten later is always cooked in the budget. It goes to Parliament. Parliament is supposed to oversight it and supposed to,
question this.
Make sure that everything that has been padded is removed. But then Parliament then comes on and adds more padding and say, what is in it for me? What is in it for my constituency? Remember, at one stage, we had no committee because there was a lot of corruption at the committee level.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of problems we have. If that budget is given to you and the spice team, you will find that for whatever they say they're going to, spend 2.7 trillion, you can bring it down to 1 trillion. I can assure you, 100%. Okay? So the government buys newspapers for 200 shillings when the newspaper
is 65
price is about 60 or 70 or 100 shillings.
60 bob.
60 bob.
Okay? So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what's going on. You can do that when you have the space, but we don't have. No country in the world can do 7-8% deficit for 7-8 years consecutively without defaulting.
Now
we take that to the bank. We are going to default if we continue at this rate, and the signs are already there. So the IMF basically has said your debt is high risk. What does that mean? It means if you go now and borrow, you're going to borrow at a higher cost. You already have a cost problem. So it's a self-reinforcing, vicious cycle that now you can't get out of. You have to borrow to pay your debt. Your costs have gone because your rating is now poor, and you continue to go into a deeper hole unless you do something about it. And now I'm told there is a team that is being formed that they're going to look after these issues. The team, the names that have already been circulated, I'm not sure about those names. But I don't know. Unless those guys do something, we're going to default in less than a year.
Oh my God.
Mohammed, what does this mean to the taxpayer, to the Mamamboga, to that Boda guy? We've been, that deficit 7-8%, you're saying we are likely to default within a year if nothing is done. What does this mean to me as a taxpayer?
What it means to you is that you're likely, if the country is in a problem or the country sees that it's going to go into a problem, it's going to go into a World Bank or an IMF program. Now, going to an IMF program means what? remember structural adjustment program. IMF will tell you, thank you very much, tumekuja kukusaidia, lakini you have to do the following, A, B, C, D. You have to fire people. You have to fire civil servants. You have to raise taxes.
You have to sell off assets.
Go and raise more revenue. So the things that your government has committed over the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years, you're going to pay for it. Wewe ndio utalipa. That's why in other countries, when these kind of things happen, people go to the ballot and punish the politicians.
And so we need to get to this point, basically, as a people. We need to understand that this, whatever is happening, those shenanigans, it's me and you who are going to pay.
Of course.
It's not a question of those ones, somebody will be fired, let's remove so-and-so from the treasury, let's remove so-and-so from the ministry or from parliament. It's basically that it's you and I who are going to pay.
Of course, and Eric, we're talking about stimulus now. We're talking about how to stimulate the economy, COVID-19 issues and all that. The GDP growth that we have seen over the last 7, 8 years has always come from, almost all of it, come from public investments. If you look at growth in businesses, you work for a business. Profit banks, almost all companies have been reporting, profit warnings. So that means business sectors are not doing well. So the only GDP growth we are looking at, 5% or whatever it was, is coming from public investments. Now look at the economic model they have adopted. Just look at one contract, for example, the railway or whatever it is. Now I'm building a railway. I'm spending 400 billion Kenya shillings. Okay, I have given this contract to a Chinese company. I have borrowed the money from a Chinese bank. The Chinese company buys all its equipment and everything that it uses, including labor, from China. So I have borrowed 400 billion shillings from China to build a railway. That money does not even leave China. So how is it going to stimulate the economy,
the local economy?
Yet you have to pay for that debt. So we are paying for money that has not stimulated the economy. That has not come into the economy. And now if you replicate that in all the contracts and the jobs that have been done in terms of government government investments, that is the problem that we suffer. And we've said that many, many times. You're borrowing money that does not even live in China. And by the way, if you look at some of these things that were reported even yesterday, 386 billion is out. Some of that money is because of that kind of model. You have given government contracts to people in Kenya, and they've said, we're going to do the job for you. They probably have done half the job, or sometimes no job, or sometimes full job. But then they tell you, excuse me, unaweza weka pesa yangu Cayman Islands. That's what happened. And a lot of people think this is all the 386 billion is something that was stolen and, taken to. No, that's not the case. Probably, yes, there's stolen money, but a lot of that money also is people who've done jobs with government.
We are paying our suppliers outside the country.
Exactly.
When you speak to these people, because Mohammed, I'm sure you talk to these people all the time. You talk to the people at policy level, at oversight level. What do they tell you when you tell them, look, guys, it's blatantly obvious this is what you're doing? When they look at you, what do they say?
Well, all of them, most of the time, of course, the people, first of all, most of these things are driven by politicians. It's about politics. It's about what those people want. We have a constitution that has given a lot of powers to politicians. Now, the guy in treasury will tell you, sasa unataka mimi nifanye nini? Even sometimes if you're in treasury and you give the correct advice, or you seem to talk 2, 3, 4 times about issues and say, no, easy. Unatolewa mbali kabisa, unapelekwa Ministry of
Social Services
and Home Affairs, uko nyuma. So I think they know. A lot of people in the country don't understand the fact that the guys who are working for our government are very smart people. The problem is the will, the political will to do, their bosses, the people who are basically allocating these resources. And some of those people who are allocating resources are not having the national interest. Very few people. Problem we have in Kenya, Eric, is that very few people think about the country.
Think about the country or think about the people.
You think about you first in
the people of the country.
Right. But Mohammed, we saw this dizzying number of 328 billion that, I mean, as you spoke about just now, that actually goes towards individuals and then tax havens, etc., which you've just spoken about. Now, just in line with what you've been saying now about the interests of people not then being front and center when it comes to the major or the greater percentage of politicians, leaders in the country. And I have to ask the question then, when we look at aid money that then comes into country and then goes out of country that then helps only few individuals, where then is the rationale to then keep aiding if we're seeing that the aid is actually not benefiting the people of the country?
Well, I agree with you. You see, first of all, it's very hard to steal. I shouldn't say that. It's more difficult to steal aid money. I mean, if the World Bank gives you money and gives you, or the IMF, it's extremely difficult. However, if the World Bank gives you money and you tell the World Bank, fine, I want to do a water project, okay, and the contractor of the water project is Eric Latif, okay, the World Bank can do nothing about it. They'll tell you, okay, go and sign. And then what happens is when you pay Eric can take his money wherever he wants to. However, the design of what you want to do is supposed to be controlled by the government. The government, first of all, should say, I want local contractors to do this. I want to pay this money in Kenya. You see, these are economic policies that are designed to make sure that, number one, you see, the economy works in a very straightforward way. You bring money into the country, you give it to Eric and the spice team. Those people spend on the local economy. It goes to someone else. That money circulates. It stimulates the economy. Now, if the government wants to do that, it can do that. It can come up with policies. And they do have. And I think the policies the problem is the practice, but the policies do exist. But if you give a project, a World Bank project to a Chinese company or to a company, even an American company, then it means the money doesn't come in. The job is done. You pay for it. You've probably gotten some small benefit out of the project itself, but the money has not gone into other projects. It has been circulated in the economy. So these things can be controlled. The problem is, do they want to control? Do they want to drive things into that direction? No.
Clearly not.
Most of the time they look at it and say, well, what is in it for me? And what most of the vendor, first of all, most of the projects are vendor driven. So it's not a project that probably sometimes the government thinks about it and say this is good, this is something that we should do. It is vendors that go to the government with projects and say, hey, mukikuja mukikuwa elected, niko na hii project lazima tufanye.
Okay.
So this is how the country works.
Right,
unfortunately. So looking at, just reflecting at everything that you've talked about, it seems very bleak. Is there hope?
There is always hope. I think people have realized that we can't go on like this, although I think probably we might not still be at the same page. But, sometimes reality would stop you and you have to think. A time has come or would come when you have, we're already we started this conversation with saying that we borrowed 175 billion. And I told you that 175 billion is already for this financial year that's been ending. We're already firefighting. A time would come when you are not able to do whatever you want to do, and you have to think and say, what can I do? Now, there is hope because this country is rich. It has been mismanaged for so many years, yet we still continue to have revenues. We have a diversified economy. I mean, Kenya is a very, very good economy. And I say that because I have followed this economy. It's one of the Africa's most diversified economy. We don't rely on natural resources and all that. We have a good service industry. We have a good banking industry. The only thing we need to do is to be reasonable and think and say, how can we better plan our economy? How can we use the resources more prudently? How can we prioritize projects? And if we do that, if we try to manage, as I told you, even the projects that we have now, as I told you, we have 28 billion, dollar projects. We have drawn down only probably a third of that.
Yeah.
Now we have 2/3 of that we've not, taken up, although those are committed, and which we can use and reallocate to different places to try and manage the cost. But if you say no, you're 28 billion, let me go for another 28 billion and start new projects. Come on, it's crazy. We have to stop these new projects thing. We have to think also about the big four. Can we afford to do the big four now?
No.
Absolutely no. Absolutely.
And yet,
I wish the president is listening to me now. I would tell him on his face, the big four, when you came in 2013, if you wanted to do the, by the way, the big four is an excellent, program. It's a very nice program, but it came at a time when we have already wasted all the money that we had on other things.
Unfortunately.
Mohammed Ali, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us today. How is the COVID situation actually in Saudi Arabia? I mean, are you guys still in lockdown? What's happening?
Yes, we are still in lockdown. Our numbers, I think there's far much more testing going on here. Our numbers are they're far much more higher than you guys. We're talking about 2,000 plus every day. But there's a lot of testing. So yes, we are affected like anyone else.
But even with the high numbers, how many of them are seeking critical care?
I think that is the good thing in this country. I think, the numbers, reporting 2,000 a day, I think we're probably almost 50, 60, 70,000. But the deaths are very, very, the death rate is very, very low. We're talking about, I think, less than 300 since it all started, which is very, very low in terms of, given the number of people that are reported, the new cases on a daily basis.
Now, by the way, you like commenting a lot about politics, so I just, because you're here, right? One or two words. We are seeing the onslaught in Jubilee. The Tanga guys are being ruffled left, right, and center, sort of being chased out of town. What do you see playing out here?
Well, Eric, this is politics. Politics is politics. I think, it's something that we should be not concentrating at this time. We have bigger problems, but unfortunately in Kenya, there's some friends who are telling us, this COVID-19, when it started, itatuharibia siasa. So
which is the case.
We eat, we drink politics. This is Jubilee. I have no sympathy for Jubilee, and may they explode and break up into pieces, and may they never be seen the face of Kenya again. Jubilee has really, really, in my view, caused us a lot of problems as a party. So I think they're paying for the sins macho yetu imewapata macho yetu.
Well, I must personally thank you for being so candid.
Thank you very much. I have no sympathy for both sides, to be honest, whether it's Tanga or Tueleweke.
It is very evident.
Yes.
But for you, it's Jubilee, not the individuals. Shortly, when those individuals cross over ranks, then you'll be, this one is a good person.
No, of course, there are good individuals in Jubilee. I mean, look at what's happening to Kindiki. Kithure Kindiki is a very nice person, very good professor, a very respectable guy by both sides of the house. Now, there are senators who have not attended the same meeting for which he's being impeached.
Yeah.
But they have signed to impeach him.
Yeah.
That's Kenya for you. Wewe una impeach mtu kwa sababu hajaenda meeting and for which you are being punished.
You're of the opinion that he should just pack and leave. Why not just wait for him to be forcefully ousted?
Well, look at it this way: when your goose is cooked, you know why. There are two reasons. First of all, at least do something that normally does not happen in this country, which is, am I the problem? Wacha niende. Professor is a guy I respect a lot. Kithure Kindiki is a very, very nice guy. Now, the other issue is, you see, there's so many guys in that Senate who like you, who you don't want to expose, but they're going to vote against you.
Yeah.
So there is no need of
antagonizing all those
who I respect, like Mutula Kilonzo, Sakaja. Those are young senators, but there is no any other way they can go other than to vote him out. So why subject them to that?
Let me just step out with this held high. Mohammed Ulia, thank you very much for speaking to us, Senior Advisor in the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority. We wish you all the best. Stay safe in Saudi Arabia.
Asanteni sana, guys. Thank you very much. Always
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. It's 9:45. Let's take a look at traffic.
Okay, so today, traffic, non-existent, not many issues. We saw Kiambu Road had some problems as well as the Eastern Bypass, but that seems to have been sorted out now around Utawala. And so it's behaving very well. Enjoy the day while you can, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. That's all I have to say about that for now.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Online, mobile, and on radio. Facebook at Spice FM KE. Traffic.
Mohammed says, on paper, it's like a and it's a long.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Right.
Spice up yourself.
What did they do? This gentleman where they pick up the wall, right? Put some of the sand or the dirt in his pockets.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Where we have that little pick at the wall, scratching off the grass or the sand. That's where we are. Oh boy, it's long way.
It's gonna be a long one.
It's gonna be a long dig. This one.
It's Alan is calling in from Nairobi. Alan, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
My take from Welie. One, there is this concept, liquidity injecting programs and projects. See the difference between the Kibaki regime and Kenyatta. They were both borrow and spend, tax and spend.
Yep.
But the Kibaki regime borrowed and spent it here, and then it was liquidity injecting. That's why Mr. Waweru's Kenya Revenue Authority was breaking all records. The big problem with our chaps, they have borrowed a lot of money from China, and like Welia was saying, that money is not liquidity injecting. It stays in China.
And then we start paying.
And that's one of the biggest problems we had. And the second big problem we've had is they have taken so much expensive commercial money, which we never used to take before. If you looked at our debt register, it used to have a lot of concessional loans, World Bank loans, ADB loans. Today, we have taken too many commercial loans. You see, like that Italy thing, that type of loan they were taking for dams.
Yes.
We have taken too many of them. That's what is choking us. But I'm not as pessimistic as he is. I don't think we are going to default.
You think we'll be able to pay this?
Sorry?
You think we'll be able to pay this?
We're just going to do the same thing, borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
There you go. Borrow to the hills, and then the people will have to pay.
They are going to get a syndicated loan to pay the other debts. We are going to keep rolling them like that. The last shot on politics.
Yep.
The biggest mistake our brother number 2 made, the biggest tactical blunder, was to assume that his biggest enemy was Odinga. So he has spent a lot of this Tanga group fighting as if Odinga was their biggest enemy. Yet his biggest enemy really is indeed now what has come, the guy who's hitting him right now.
But now, how would he have known that?
You know, the thing is, politics without principle is our problem. That's our. When you have politics without ideology, without principles, it degenerates into politics of betrayal, backstabbing. Yeah. He didn't respect me. You know. So this coalition they are trying to do is going to form, and then we must just wait for another unprincipled one. That's the nature of our politics since 1992. So you shouldn't blame anybody also.
Dr. Mercy Korir has a hunch that this is going to backfire heavily.
Yeah, you see, like there are guys who think that it's going to be like the NDP one. Because you're bringing so many people into a tent. Yeah, it will backfire later, but it may backfire later in the next coalition, in the next life.
But for now, it will serve a purpose.
For now, it will serve a purpose. And you see, our brother should have concentrated in building alliances with the other big players, other ethnic chieftains.
Yeah.
Instead of surrounding himself with this bunch of neophytes, political neophytes from Central Province, they're calling themselves Tanga. He should have sought Mudavadi and cut a deal with him, or sought Kalonzo and cut a deal with him.
And the rest. And
Wetangula. Instead of surrounding himself with this bunch of nondescript. And noise-making, chest-thumping nondescript.
It worked for him at that point.
Yeah, and you know one thing? As long as the president was looking like he was caged, like he was cornered, which the Tanga campaign managed to do, it was very easy to say that he's losing ground in Central Province. But once he opens his fangs like he has done, you see all those Tanga guys scrambling, trooping back to Muchukuyu land.
Alan, thank you very much, old chap.
Cheers, old chap.
Yeah, have a good one. 0719-012-600. Any final thoughts on the day? I mean, what we've had, we have borrowed our money. In fact, it's a good way that Welia has actually explained. Some of this money that we're finding in those tax havens has not necessarily been spirited out of here. You know, it came into a national treasury and then, no, it's planned. It was planned from a long time ago. You come, you're going to get this deal. You will build a pipeline. You'll build a dam. You'll do this and the other. And then the company says, all right, so this is where you're going to pay. And because the government has not said, no, I cannot pay you if your account is outside the country, then money just goes. Clean, eh? Bella ciao, bella ciao. It's just... Very well orchestrated.
Very well thought out.
You know what? I think also by the time you're able to make a decision, then you should be able to make it informed. And a lot of the information that we've been given by Mohammed today is fantastic. There's that word again. Because it helps you see really what is really going on. And when we talk about development in any country, which is where we are for a lot of us, we're still, a lot of countries in sub-Saharan Africa and in other parts of the world, is that we're still developing. We've not reached economic development. Unfortunately, the politics has taken over. Can't be, and I will always say, you can't be politically stable if you're not economically developed. It's not possible. No. It can't happen. So we've put the cart before the horse in this case, and we're still taking some steps, and the horse is still hasn't left the stable. So to say that we are borrowing money for development, and then you budget money and a third of that money then goes towards paying off loans, and the money that you're borrowing for development actually doesn't go into development, we're in a mess. If we're just going to say it as simply as that. And if you want to look at take it from me, Kenya has, we complain about it, but Kenya has superb infrastructure comparatively to other countries on the continent. Superb infrastructure. Now, can you imagine a situation where now you're able to inject?
Can you imagine if
proper mechanism? Use the brilliant policymakers that you have, use the brilliant policy papers that you have and policy initiatives that you have, then to create this thing where you have a country that now you can skip 3-4 steps by virtue of applying willingness to this brilliance that you already have.
They're jokers.
Come on.
They're jokers. John Joroge in Mombasa.
How are you, sir?
We are fine.
Or should I call you white men and women?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, John.
No, the issue of politics. I'd say maybe we are looking things the wrong way. I have a feeling.
John, I think you're moving and it's quite noisy.
It's noisy?
It's quite noisy. Wherever you are, you're moving, it's quite noisy. So let's just get you back online when you are able to maybe stop so you can call us and we have this conversation. He was just about to make a comment on where we are in terms of politics. We, our political, Mohammed was saying we have a very well diversified economy. Can you imagine this is an economy that's able to raise locally via tax 1.5 trillion?
I was going to say by force, but okay.
Yes,
tax.
And this is not everybody who's contributing to this.
Yeah.
We are raising 1.5 trillion shillings, and yet 1 trillion of that goes to paying debt. Imagine if it wasn't. Imagine if it was the other way around.
Imagine a third of your budget goes towards paying loans, and you're still borrowing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still borrowing, and 2/3 of your money, and even
2/3 of your collection. 2/3 of your collection is paying loans.
Good Lord.
And you're still budgeting.
And
still borrowing.
And then remember, out of your entire budget, they say that 1/3 goes into corruption.
Unidentified.
You're still stealing it.
Still stealing it. Okay, so a month to a new budget. Oh God. A month to a new budget.
We have
you've just gotten money
shillings
to make up for fiscal financing gap in the last budget that's about to end. So you beg the question, what if these institutions had said, no?
But also, no. So we have a month to the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
We have 191 billion shillings that had been budgeted for projects between
in the last
June
fiscal
last
year. In
and
this one, yes.
And this year.
Yes.
So are we saying that we are going to spend this money in
That's
that short
question,
period of...
Because you've made it, right? You've made it having not finished those projects all this time.
Yeah.
Okay? You're going into a new cycle, right? So suddenly the money comes. This is my question. Will this money go towards that for which it has been allocated? That is my pet peeve. Well, budgeted, not even allocated. Will it go there? It's just come. As in we speak Pesa Iko. Will it go there? That's the question. And we have a month. New budget is there looking at us. It's going to be announced next month.
Yep.
Will it go? And it pains
not.
me that we have to ask the question. But
and
we have to ask.
That answers what I mean, Mohammed already answered that when he says, so you have 25 billion that you have, gotten in for a certain project. You haven't spent it. You've only spent a small amount of that. But you're already thinking, no. For this other project, I need to borrow some more. Instead of looking at this money that you have not spent. So the 191 billion is clearly not going to be spent.
No.
We'll start July with this money in the account. But we'll budget.
We'll budget for more than that amount.
For more than that.
The budget will come. Watch and see. The budget that will come will not be less. It will not, look, it will not state that this is what was available in public coffers and this is what is going to be allocated. It's not going to state that. You are going to see a fresh budget, sans this amount. And that's clear. Call me out now later when they say that actually, you know what, we included the 191 billion. And I'll say, all right, I accept. But in this case, it would be very nice to see if this goes through in that budget.
Maybe we should start operating like you do a business or any bank statement where you have balance brought forward and things like that, so that you know this is where we started, this is what has come in, this is what is going out. You know, a proper balance sheet, so that
we say
we
now,
know.
Now, as we're going into this new session, this is what we need, but we still have this amount. We can sort it out.
It's a question we've asked this whole week. Tuko na pesa ngapi?
Tuko
na shilingi ngapi?
Even those we know, don't know.
These are jokers. So, shall we end with celebrating Radio Maisha again? So, it's time to break out the champagne and celebrate with us. As your favorite radio station and our mother station, Radio Maisha, is celebrating a decade of ruling the airwaves. For the last 10 years, Radio Maisha has transformed the lives of Kenyans, one voice at a time, one show after another. It's been 10 years of great entertainment, 10 years of great conversations, 10 years of staying ahead together as the winners. 2 years in a row, Radio Maisha has won the Kuza Broadcasting Awards in the People's Choice Radio Station category, and it has more than earned the tag Radio Zaidi ya Radio. So shall we say it in Swahili? Radio Zaidi ya Radio.
Radio.
Zaidi ya Radio.
Oh, you're saying in
unison? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, go.
Radio Zaidi ya Radio. Chaguo la Wakenya.
Chaguo la Wakenya.
Happy birthday, Radio Maisha.
Right. Happy birthday, Radio Maisha, right? Looking forward to the next 10 years. And in those next 10 years, we'll be 10. Ourselves. And we'll be here. We'll have won many awards. You wait.
Wait and see.
You wait.
Inshallah.
You just wait. We work hard for that. Today's proverb, maize bears fruit once and dies because it's not rooted into the ground. So this African proverb basically is looking at your foundation. You cannot succeed and remain successful. Don't build your house on sand. You'll never get to the top and stay prosperous without a firm foundation. Basic principle is have a firm foundation, and it's even in the Bible. So this is self-explanatory. Now, say goodbye as you go, and I give you guys your sausages.
Okay.
We'll have pictorial evidence.
On this 21st
of May.
No photos. No media allowed in this event.
This is not a parliamentary group meeting.
Exactly.
No media allowed into this event.
Party secret Senate party or event. No.
It has to be public.
Yes, no.
Of course.
You made the claim in public.
Sawa. It's 10 o'clock. See you again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Dr. Marcy Korir, Nduoko, Eric Latif, signing off. Have a good day, folks.